who tuned in yesterday, today, whether you're online watching on Orders Nation YouTube. Gained a lot of subscribers yesterday. I love it. People were enjoying it. I think you might want to tune in online for sure at 3 o'clock because we have a special guest in studio. It's a new segment that we will do every Wednesday, and it's called Who Is It Wednesday. We'll tell you about that momentarily. Of course, I want to let you know the Jason Gregor Show is always presented by PlayAlberta.ca. All the revenues from Play Alberta stay right here in the province. So dare to dream that even if you lose, it might help you get around the roads a little bit better. Because your loss will go to the roads. You never know. So check it out at playalberta.ca. And speaking of playalberta.ca, every day on the show, starting today, we're gonna get some listener interaction. It'll make it fun because it's all for charity. And we will be doing like 3 games or 3 props, whatever it is. We'll parlay it. And we have a $20 wager at playalberta.ca. And all the money we make, and hopefully we make some, at the end of the month, will go to charity. All right. And in October, our first charity is going to be Kids Sport. So there you go. So, and what we'll do is later on in the show, any of you so think about it for today. What is a game or, like a line, a prop that you want, hey, so-and-so to get 2 hits. Somebody gets so many strikeouts potentially in MLB. You send in a few, and we'll always take minimum 1 listener's suggestion and possibly up to 2 or 3, depending on the day. So we'll have fun with that. So for all of you who are looking and you feel it, and remember, we want an opportunity to win because it's all for the kids, which is fantastic. You can get involved in the show. You can text us at 833-401-1440. All we ask is that when you send in a text, if you're a first timer, put your name on it. Put your nickname, whatever you want. Okay? Because then we'll have your name in the system forever. And then you don't have to do it again. We save it. Well, hopefully we save all of them. I couldn't believe how many texts there were yesterday. We might not have saved all of them because it was a lot of work, but still, it was great. It's a good problem to have. And so I just find that then we've got a little bit of communication. We know who we're talking to. And you get credit when you have those really witty or good texts, but we can't attribute to anyone. Now we'll be able to do it. So that's fantastic. We are coming to you live from the eWell Studios. Happy to have them aboard. Thing is, I'll say this, the lighting in this eWell studio is fantastic. I love it. And eWell, of course, your local electrical distributor. They say, hey, stay tuned for an electrifying show that'll light up your day. I like it. We love eWell because they're very positive. EWEL.ca. Coming up on the show, the Con Man has, of course, set us up with a great lineup. As I mentioned, Who Is It Wednesday? In-studio guest. We're going to do this every Wednesday, and it'll be at 3 o'clock. We have a guest in studio. I'll give you some hints on who it will be, and we'll see if you can decipher who it is. And then we'll have a good hour-long conversation, and they have the opportunity to stick around even longer if they like. On the show today, Adam Levitan, because I know many of you are wondering about week 1 in fantasy football. Adam Levitan, one of the best fantasy guys out there. Give you some tips. Hey, who do you start? Like who? We know the obvious ones, right? Hey, if you got Christian McCaffrey, you're starting him. Yeah, thanks. You got Austin Eckler? Sure, we know you're starting him. But what about, your RB2? Maybe your second receiver. Who's going to be your flex? Maybe you have 2 defenses. Maybe. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. It's a bold strategy. So we'll talk to him. Tyler Yaremchuk from Orders Nation will be by. Also, today we're going to unveil, we're trying a new thing on the show with Cam Tait. Cam Tait has cerebral palsy. And Cam Tait's been around the city for a long, long time. Cam's a pretty funny dude. And I've gotten to know Cam, and we have great conversations. And because he has cerebral palsy, it's difficult to completely understand everything he says. I've gotten to know him. It's great. And so he's always kind of wanted to do radio. So he has a voice box now where he can take his thoughts and put them out there. So we have 2 minutes with Tait that'll be twice a week, usually Monday and Fridays. But because we weren't on Monday this week, it'll debut today. Okay, so that's coming up. Mike Rupp, our weekly Wednesday guest, will join us today. We got Spec, Steve McIntyre. Yesterday we had Jordan Eberle on the show. Today we got Steve McIntyre, and it's interesting because Eberle's first NHL game also involved the Steve McIntyre Evanens fight. Remember that? Oh my goodness. You don't see those type of tilts very often. So we'll catch up with Big Steve, see what he's up to. He's got some unique things going on. So we'll touch on that. As always, you can text us at 833-401-1440. You can email me, Gregor, at sports1440.ca in our Jiffy Lube inbox. Check it out there. We got a lot of text flying in already. Some news and notes from around the hockey world today. The Toronto Maple Leafs might win the Stanley Cup. Now, I might be very biased on this, okay? Obviously, I'm kidding. But they signed Noah Gregor to a PTO today. This has been ongoing discussions for a few weeks that, sometimes his family members got to keep it hush-hush. So, good opportunity for him. Go in there. They had a really long conversation with their head coach, Sheldon Keefe, about where he sees and the opportunities and what he can bring. So, we'll hope that it, selfishly, for me, hope it works out very well. Oilers fans are probably happy he's out of the division. The one team he really lit up was the Edmonton Oilers, especially on home ice. I guess road ice for San Jose, home ice for him. So, nice signing. I like it. Obviously, I'm admittedly biased. Admittedly, and I'm okay with that. How can you not be? You should be. It's just how it goes. Also, Connor Halley, huge news in the NFL. This just came down a few moments before we were on air. Tell all of our listeners about the big signing.
Yeah, good news for our good friend Hernan Salas and the rest of the 49ers nation. Nick Bosa, defensive end, agreeing to a 5-year deal worth $170 million, 122.5 guaranteed. So 3-time Pro Bowler, one of the best defensive players in the NFL, a guy who can absolutely wreck game plans. He'll be staying with the San Francisco 49ers. Importantly, gets into the lineup for week 1. I'm sure it's going to be a rotation base because he's not going to be fully in football shape, but that Bosa family, they are shrewd negotiators. We saw it with Joey Bosa. We saw it with his mom when Joey, of course, was drafted, said he should have held out for more money. I mean, they were in no rush to get there, but good on the Niners locking him up, paying one of their guys, and that's good. And that relates to fantasy too, Gregor, because with Nick Bosa there, your Niners defense is a lot stronger. So good for them, good for that getting done. And just a slight other NFL note for you NFL fantasy fit players. Joe Burrow, full participant at Bengals practice today. That's good news. Look like he's all right, ready to go for week 1.
Yeah, you got to think he's ready to go, right? Well, first of all, healthy guys barely play in the preseason in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly.
So you look at that offense in Cincinnati, it should be pretty good. I would think it would be quite good. Hey, boys, I'm tuning in from Willington, Alberta on the iHeartRadio app. Loving that you guys are back on the radio. Jeff, thanks for tuning in. Willington, oh my goodness. Before I got into radio, I worked in the oil field, and I worked for a long time at Premium Oil Field Inspection. But before that, my Uncle Clayton, my cousins Scott and Shelley, they owned API Valve. Well, they still own it. And Victor was a so you got to remember, I'm like a young 18-year-old. It's one of my first real jobs. And Victor was from Willington, Alberta. And Victor, when you've probably had that one coworker that was just a very unique character. Well, that was Vic. He was, I don't even know how to accurately describe Victor. Because he always talked, he's like, Frange, how you doing, Frange? That's how he talked. Oh my God, he was so funny. And Vic liked to party a little bit. And so, his attendance at work wasn't necessarily always top notch, but when he was there, he's an unbelievable worker. But man, he had some funny stories and then how he talks. So anytime I hear and see the name Willington, I think of Vic. Oh, what an absolute beauty. I'm sure everybody, Cons, you must have one coworker. Well, maybe it's present, but in the past that you worked with, you're just like back when you were working, was it Safeway or Save On?
Save On. Yeah.
Save On.
Save On Foods.
Yeah. Do you have it, or were you that coworker that everybody talks about?
I mean, there was a few, all people from the grocery stores, they come from all walks of life, right? So there was definitely a few characters. One of my favorite guys, and he works at Oilers Nation. I'll give him some love here. Aaron Bordato, producer. I mean, I find him absolutely hilarious. He's got some good stories. He's still younger, so he kind of lives it up. I tried to like live a little bit through him and some of the stories he would tell me,
All
but
right.
good guy. Save on Foods. We had a guy named Barry who I was a big fan of. Always had some really fun stories to let us know about. Yeah, those guys are the best. The glue guys, right?
Oh, 100%. That's outstanding. So now, got a lot of text flying in. Hey, guys, quick question. Are there or is there a plan to have the podcast of the shows? I missed the Eberle interview yesterday due to a mindless work meeting, and I would love to hear it. Comes in from St. Albert Southie. Yes. Connor, explain where people can get the podcast for the Jason Gregor Show.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a little bit slow to begin with. Apple causing some issues, but yeah, you can search it on Apple. You will see the Jason Gregor Show logo when you search it with the Play Alberta. Click that; it's right there. It's on Spotify. You can also go to iHeart to find it there. Any questions? Text in 1-833-401-1440. Just let me know even what platform you need it on. I can send you the link directly.
Hey, Greg's, I met Cam Tait at a charity golf tournament. Took me to a couple Oiler games that got me in the locker room as a kid. I cherish that time, and he's an unbelievable guy. Led to core memories for me as a child. Happy to have him on. That one comes from Uncle Jesse. Oh, Tater is a beauty, man. And Tater always had, because Cam's in a wheelchair. And so he always has somebody who wheels him around, like his escort, who takes him around all the time. And he always had different, and they were super nice. And I think they loved it because you're right. Like Cam got to go everywhere, and Cam was beloved, whether it was in the Elks room, the Esks room, in the Oilers. People liked him. And so if you were the lucky person who got to wheel him around, literally and figuratively, you got some pretty good access that you normally never would have had, just as an average Joe. So that was the benefit of being Cam's handler, for sure. So. Hey, Greg's, I have to say the con man needs more time in a show. 1 hour isn't enough. We just started to get going from Lance. Hey, Lance, trust me, we know. And that we have a plan. Expansion will be part of Sports 1440. And you know what? I'm happy. Every now and then I'll get something right. I was a big believer that the fantasy show would be popular amongst the audience members, and it has not disappointed. In fact, it's over exceeded at the amount of texts and the questions and just the interaction. People are loving that show because so many of you like to play fantasy sports. It makes the game a little bit better, right? Or sometimes more frustrating. No doubt about that. And I know they're doing lots of football. They'll get into lots of hockey as the season goes along. And then, of course, baseball, golf, and daily fantasy. So, yes. And don't worry. I knew it was that popular because we have a fantasy segment on the show, and we'll be having Connor involved in that periodically as well. So it's going to be very, very fun to have that all year long. I like it. Hey, Greg's. It feels like a wonderful homecoming having you and so many of the crew back. Thank you for coming back. That one comes from X-Ray Gogs. I will say this. I love the fact that so many of you have a handle. Very, very unique handles. We save it in there, and now I know who everybody is. It feels like I know people better. It's always a good connection. If you feel you have a connection to people, it's better. So obviously most of you know my name. Now I know your nicknames, your moniker, whatever it is, your full name. It's fantastic. Just makes the show much smoother. Also, if you're watching, feel free to comment on the chat on YouTube. Connor and I like to interact with that as well. It's great. Hey, Greg's, is your guest going to be Mike Camilleri? No. Well, I'll give you a few hints. Here's our first few hints. We'll see how well you know Who Is It Wednesday. Okay? Here's our first few hints before we get to break. So Who Is It Wednesday is a guest we have every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And the majority of the time, they're going to be in studio. You know, people when they come in with their organization or their team, or they're traveling in, we've got some unique guests. Like, for instance, we almost had, and I know Lotai had him on the show, it was unreal, but we were hoping to have Carl Weathers as our inaugural one. Just the time didn't line up, but those are the type of people we're going to be getting. Some of them are going to be people that you as sports fans definitely have a knowledge about, and we'll kind of weave it into story time a little bit. So here's a few of the hints today. They have been involved in pro hockey for 28 years as a player or coach. played over 1,000 NHL games, played on 5 different NHL teams. So those are some of the first hints for Who Is It Wednesday. 28 years in pro hockey, 1,000 games played, part of 5 different NHL organizations. If you think you know the answer, text it to our text line, 833-401-1440. Or if you're watching online, put the answer in the chat. We'll see who's got it right. Let us know. We'll take a quick break. When we return, Adam Levitan joins us on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
At The Brick, we're not just proud of this city and its rich sports history. We're proud partners of it. 50 years ago, The Brick started right here in Edmonton. And when we're not cheering on the Oilers and Oil Kings live at the game, or the Edmonton Elks under the lights at the Brick Field, we're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971. Saving you more.
Come into Jiffy Lube for a Pennzoil Platinum full synthetic oil change and receive a $20 digital gift card to one of over 30 merchants, such as Starbucks or Tim Hortons. For a location near you, visit jiffylubeservice.ca. Jiffy Lube, keeping you moving.
Wing Wednesday at First Round. Whether you're coming for the first round, the last round, or a few rounds in between, they've got you covered. With half-price wings every Wednesday night. Half-price wings. Over 35 delicious flavors like Cajun salt and pepper, maple bacon, and Inferno wings. Now half-price every Wednesday night. Wash them down with a cold pint of Canadian or Coors Light for only $5.75. Half-price Wing Wednesdays at First Round in West Ed and now downtown. First Round, burgers, beer, sports.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit
the finest organic, grain-fed, free-range plumbers. For all your plumbing needs, go to mrrooter.ca.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Dancing in the aisles and singing out loud, yeah.
We continue on Wednesday afternoon. Happy hump day. It's Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 live. Oilers Nation YouTube, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website. And we are on the eve of another NFL season. You got the Chiefs and the Lions tomorrow. Likely no Travis Kelce for Chiefs fans. It's not great, or anybody who has him in fantasy. And let's get to our fantasy report, brought to you by Next Gen Transportation, heavy haul transport provider, 100% locally owned and operated, and huge supporters in the community and big sponsors of numerous youth sports team. It's nextgentransportation.com. And man, when you're thinking fantasy football, there's very few guys. If you're not following him, what are you doing? From Establish the Run, Adam Levitan joins us now. Adam, how you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Adam, I'm kind of, it's interesting because I've followed you for a long time, and it's like I follow like the evolution really of fantasy sports, specifically fantasy football for you. Like if you look back to when you started to how it is now, did you imagine it would become this big?
Yes. I actually think that it did, because I thought it would, because my generation, I'm 40 years old now. I mean, we grew up. I did a fantasy draft last night with my friends from high school. This is the 27th year that we have done this fantasy football league. We were obsessed with it in 1996. And I think it just took the internet to kind of put a flame to it. And once the internet hit, I mean, me and my friends were in the library at school. That's the only place we had internet at that time. And yeah, we would be working on our fantasy football team. So yeah, I thought generationally, I understand that my dad's generation, they care about teams. I think my generation, 40 years old and younger, cares more about players.
Yeah, and that's fair. So I think you're one of the best guys to ask because you've played everything. Is there like a half PPR, full PPR, standard? Is there one that you think is the best format to play?
I think the most fair, I would say, is half PPR. I think I prefer full because I think it's just better for me. I can more accurately project who's going to catch passes and stuff like that than I can who's going to score touchdowns. And you know, when you start awarding points for things other than touchdowns, it becomes less touchdown dependent. Touchdowns are very, very, very hard to predict. I mean, last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown got knocked out inside the 5-yard line 5 times, helping Jamal Williams score 17 touchdowns. That stuff is so random and hard to project, whereas catches, carries, all that other stuff is much easier. So I think for skill, more things is better. If you just want to have fun, I understand touchdowns is a lot of fun.
Oh, 100%. And so I'm a guy who's partial to offense, so I like the higher scoring games. I don't like standard at all. Half PPR I can live with, but I definitely like the full one. Adam Levitan joins us from Establish the Run. So Adam, like there's some obvious starts, right? Of course, Eckler and McCaffrey. We don't need to talk about that. I think where a lot of guys win, just like in your draft, usually you win. If you're going to have a good team, it's what you're doing in rounds 5 through to round 10. And really week 1 is always kind of interesting because there's always a lot of hype, right? Like there's the new faces and everyone gets excited. Oh, you know, Gibbs is going to be awesome in Detroit or what have you. But when you dig into your numbers, how difficult is it to get an accurate projection for week 1 when lots of these guys, we don't really see much of the number 1 offense or number 1 defense in preseason?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to realize that all the data, the entire market, everybody is going to be better next week, and we'll be better in week 3, and we'll be better in week 4. And by the time week 8 and week 10 comes around, we are going to have a very, very good idea of how these players will be used. And so, yeah, I would encourage people, if you have an out there take, if you have a contrarian take, let's say you think Jahmyr Gibbs is barely going to play and Dave Montgomery is going to play all the snaps. I wouldn't agree with you, but if you have that take, the time to implement it would be now, because by the time week 8 comes, like I can guarantee that we will be very accurate with our projections and stuff like that. And so, yeah, and the entire market will be much better. So yeah, the time to be out there wild on your own island is certainly now.
Which young players have you, and I'm sure you've learned not to get too excited about young guys every year, but I'm sure there's some that you're like, okay, this guy, I think, like, who are you high on heading into this season?
Yeah, I think the one that I'm sure everybody is high on is Tony Pollard. I mean, I think Tony Pollard is going to absolutely smash for the Cowboys here this year with Ezekiel Elliott gone. But I think some of the more interesting ones that I like are Christian Watson, who I know is hurt right now, just popped up today, which was very scary for me personally because I have a small village invested in Christian Watson this year. However, I do think that once he gets right, hopefully as soon as this week, he's a really good year 2 breakout candidate. Same with Drake London, same with Jahan Dotson. You can see how the NFL is going. More and more young players, our best athletes in America, do not want to play running back, do want to play wide receiver. At the same time, you get the NFL changing all these rules to favor the pass game. And so, you just get into the situation where everything leads you towards wide receiver. Injury rates are lower. The best athletes are often playing wide receiver. Now, the NFL is passing more. The NFL's rules make it easier to pass more. And so, a lot of these wide receivers like London, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, Jerry Jeudy, once he gets healthy, all these guys, I think, are pretty good breakout candidates.
Adam Levitan joins us from Establish the Run. Adam, are you buying the offense of the Jacksonville Jaguars? Is this the breakout year for the hair? Is this where we see the hair really get into flow and rhythm?
I thought he broke out at the end of last year, honestly. I thought that Trevor Lawrence was awesome down the stretch last year. Adding Calvin Ridley should not go underestimated. I mean, I think people underestimate how important wide receiver play is to quarterback production. And so to have Calvin Ridley with Evan Ingram, with Zay Jones, with Christian Kirk, with Travis Etienne, I mean, it's going to be hard, I think, for Trevor Lawrence to not have another really, really good year. So, yeah, I think the breakout is on for Trevor Lawrence, and I think it will be sticky.
What about Gibbs, the young running back? I love what your thoughts about the running back position, because in pro sports, I don't know if in history we've ever seen a position go from as highly valued as it was for many decades to now being, 3-4 guys on some teams at different times. It's obviously still an important position, but rare is it a one-man band. What do you make of the Lions and Gibbs in that offense?
So just from a profile perspective, you do not see running backs like Jahmyr Gibbs get drafted in the top 15. The only ones to be able to catch the football like Jahmyr Gibbs did in college and then come to the NFL and be drafted in the top 20 picks, we're talking about guys like Christian McCaffrey and guys like Saquon Barkley. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs has the profile that we look for in a fantasy running back. Absolutely outrageous pass catcher, going to play in all types of game scripts, going to get some base work as well. I do think Dave Montgomery will get a majority of the base work and the goal line work, but man, Jahmyr Gibbs can still really smash. I take him in round 4 in half PPR. I think you can make a case end of round 3 for full PPR on Jahmyr Gibbs. I think leaning into rookie running backs who go in the top 10 is a good bet typically.
Adam, we got a lot of texts coming in, questions, and people asking about, when you play daily compared to being in a league, you like it better? And do you have any tips on how to be successful in daily fantasy?
Yeah, so I do like daily better at this point in my life. I think the season-long grind of trades and waivers and setting your lineup, I know people love it. Maybe my brain has been dewired to be instant gratification where I need the result of how my team did today. So yeah, I think that's a personal preference thing for people who want to play DFS. I mean, to me, DFS is such a great game. I think the two big things that people need to understand is if you're playing tournaments in DFS, what do you win when you win? Let's say this week, let's say Terry McLaurin was going to be out. He's not going to be, he's going to play, but let's say Terry McLaurin was out and you were like, oh man, I got this great Jahan Dotson. He's 5,000 against Arizona. He's a great play. If he hits and he goes off and everybody else in the world has him also on their team, what do you win when you win? Not that much. And so leaning into the chaos of the NFL when you're playing tournaments, I think is important. The second thing for DFS is just contest selection. I mean, so many times people play these small buy-in, try to win $1 million. There's 300, 400,000 people in the tournament. It's like playing a weighted lottery. If you're really good, maybe you have a slight edge on the field, and instead of one lottery ticket, you have 1.0001 lottery tickets. I would encourage people to play smaller field stuff. I would encourage people to play 50-50s and double ups and stuff like that so that they understand, going for $5 into $1 million is very, 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 very unlikely.
Adam Levitan joins us from Establish the Run, talking all things fantasy football. The NFL season begins tomorrow. The Chiefs and the Lions. And you mentioned it's a young man's game. There's lots of youth now in the NFL. Like, Tom Brady was kind of a unicorn. Obviously, Larry Fitzgerald. Does Mr. Hopkins How much do you think he's got left in the tank?
Yeah, good question. I think at this point in DeAndre Hopkins' career, he is a contested catch, middle area receiver. I don't think you're going to see a lot of separation from him, and that's concerning, I think. But as players get older, if they win like that, it's easier for them to sustain. When guys win with speed, it's really, really hard for them to stick around into their 30s. So I'm somewhat optimistic on DeAndre Hopkins. I thought he was a fine 5th or 6th round pick, especially in leagues where you get points for a reception or half point for a reception. I would not be shocked if by the end of the year, Treylon Burks closes the gap on DeAndre Hopkins a bit. But I think to start the year, it'll be DeAndre Hopkins as the number 1 for Ryan Tannehill.
And if you look at the New York Jets, they got Aaron Rodgers, right? Wilson, you got Hall. They got some weapons there. How long do you think it takes for the Jets offense to get going? And do you think they will get going? Is Wilson, like, obviously Devontae Adams was a pretty elite receiver. Are we going to see similar numbers from Wilson with Rodgers that we saw Adams with Rodgers?
Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson is an awesome, awesome prospect. I think Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers of our generation. Like, it's just absolutely incredible. So I'm hesitant to put Garrett Wilson in that discussion. But I do think he's going to have an awesome year for sure on Garrett Wilson. The Jets have a very tough schedule to start the season. They play a lot of very, very good defenses. I know they have offensive line questions. I think they'll maybe, I didn't think Aaron Rodgers was very good last year, quite frankly. 2 years ago, he was obviously awesome. So if he can't turn this career arc around, then yeah, I think there's going to be some problems there. But I think they'll figure it out. And I think Buffalo is a bit overrated. I think the Dolphins are rising, but not there yet. And so I still think the Jets have a pretty good chance to win the division. They would need to beating Buffalo in week 1 would be a good start.
Adam, you mentioned tough defenses, right? From year to year, like we do strength of schedule, and it's, a lot of it's based on the past and then any new faces on the team. You've done this now for 28 years. So I'm sure you've got lots of data and charts for you. When it comes to defenses early, if you're dressing a receiver, do you not shy away because you're like, well, yeah, I think the defense is going to be good, but I kind of got to see it first. How does that work early in the season for fantasy?
Data is very clear that defensive performance is not very sticky year over year. I mean, it's just not, in terms of yards per play allowed, in terms of a ton of things, it is not that sticky. That said, I mean, there are some defenses that are just so outrageously talented. So I think the stuff that isn't sticky is like defenses 5 through 25. You can throw your arms up and say, I don't know how good they're going to be this year. If a team was a top 5 defense last year and they return everyone and they return the same coach, I think we can have some expectation they're going to be pretty good this year. So more at the tails, I think the defensive stuff is sticky, but that huge swath in the middle of defenses, I would encourage people to just not worry about it at all.
Well, the big signing today, of course, the 49ers, record-breaking Mr. Bosa has got the most money ever for a defensive player. Their defense was good before. Now you get Bosa back. Are they the clear best defense in your eyes?
I think the Jets have a really good defense. I thought Miami, until Jalen Ramsey got hurt, was going to have a really good defense. It's hard not to say San Francisco, though. They just have so much talent, and they did it purposefully. I mean, there were years and years where they just kept taking pass rushers, defensive linemen, first round, defensive lineman, first round, pass rusher, over and over and over and over again. And they've built it up to a point where they have incredible talent on their defense. So yeah, I would say they're the best, but I think the Jets are not that far behind.
Adam, I have one last one for you. So I'm watching, of course, the wonders of technology now. We're live on radio, of course. Now we're live on YouTube as well. I can see you. And I'm looking at your Twitter avatar, and then I'm looking at Adam Levitan. Is that the young Adam Levitan? Are you just holding on to that one? You got the beard going now, the full shadow. How's that going? Are we going to update the avatar? Or do you just like that, the young innocent? Is that so people fall victim to your experience in fantasy football?
So what happened was I used to work at a newspaper, and this was when I was 23, 24 probably. We had an actual photo editor. We had a professional photographer, and he took that profile picture for me, photoshopped, made me look really good. Since then, I have not worked at a professional office at all, really, in probably 20 years or something like that. So I have no access to professional photographer. And then it just turned into a bit. People were like, "Oh, why aren't you changing your profile picture?" Okay. And at this point, I just tell people I'm going to die with it. So I'm going to be 70, and that's it.
Okay. Well, for anybody out there, if you're not following Adam Levitan on X, Twitter, whatever it's called. You're missing out because it is unbelievable stuff. Established a run. I love it, man. It's so insightful. And honestly, like I learned lots about the game as much about fantasy. So it's great to have you on the show. We appreciate it. Continued success. And we hope to talk to you again soon. Enjoy the season.
Hey, thanks so much. And thanks for having me.
It's Adam Levitan. That is a great get by Connor Halley, man. Like he is one of the best, most insightful fantasy guys out there. Like it's such a unique, and I like what he said. He goes, you know what? My age group, 40 and under, they maybe like players more than teams. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a favorite team, but you kind of grew up playing fantasy. And I remember when I started playing fantasy, it was hard because at certain times, like, God, I hate the Patriots. So I didn't want to draft a Patriots player, which was stupid because they were good. Right? So you kind of have to separate that. So it's definitely a little bit different of a challenge. No question about it. That was the Fantasy Report brought to you by Next Gen Transportation. You're listening to the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, live on Sports 1440, sports1440.ca, and of course, watching on the Oilers Nation YouTube channel. If you're watching, hit the subscribe button. We want to get 250 subscribers every day. We have a big goal to get. And by the way, when we get to 20,000, a few of you are going to be winning some tickets to see some early regular season blue and orange action down at Rogers Place. So get online, watch it. We got a big Who Is It Wednesday guest coming up at 3 o'clock. You don't want to miss. And we have the debut of Yaremchuk and Tait coming up.
Legacy
Jaffa Machinery. Did you know that Jaffa offers in-house and on-site service? Rain or shine, Jaffa's service department is there for you. Get a quote now at jaffamachinery.com.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Welcome back to the show. How are you? Sports 1440. You can text us 833-401-1440 in our Jiffy Lube inbox. If you ever need to send us an email, longer thoughts, Gregor at sports1440.ca. Today we got a lot of new things because, of course, it's only day 2. We're going to unveil Tyler Yaremchuk's coming up for his first hit on the new show on the new station. We'll get to that. But we're going to do this usually every Monday and Friday. Cam Tait has a cerebral palsy. He's a huge sports fan. He's actually really funny. Cam actually used to do, he would joke that it was sit-down comedy because, of course, he's in a wheelchair. And he's a very funny guy. He's quite witty. But because he has cerebral palsy, at times it's difficult to really truthfully understand him. So he's always wanted to be in radio. And now with the advancements in technology, we're going to give him an opportunity. We're going to have the 2-minute warning with Cam Tait. And it's going to be every Monday and Friday. This week, of course, because we were off Monday, it'll be right now. So here's the debut of 2-minute warning with Cam Tait.
The 2-minute warning with Cam Tait. My name is Tony, and I'm a generated voice from Imaphone Voxbox. Cam has cerebral palsy and doesn't speak clear, so I'm going to read Cam's words. Here we go. Professional sports and pressure. Peanut butter and jelly. McDavid and Draisaitl. A little bridge there for our topic at hand. The dynamic duo and the rest of the Edmonton Oilers, I have been told, start skating today. Training camp is only a few strong wind gusts away. When the Edmonton Oilers open the regular season, the pressure will be on. It's more than a pivotal season for the Oilers. The clock is ticking louder by the second. With the 2 best hockey wizards on the planet, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, entering the 8th season without hoisting the Stanley Cup, there is a white elephant sitting at center ice. The Oilers have to get in the Stanley Cup final. Have to. It's a must. They need to learn what it takes to win Lord Stanley first. If they achieve that, then, and only then, a foundation will have been established. Numbers 29 and 97 will want to return for a skate loop around the promised ice. Anything short could potentially spark change. McDavid's contract is up in 2 seasons. Same with Draisaitl. If the superstars are without a NHL championship by then, who could blame them to leave Edmonton? Great players deserve to be on championship teams. It would be a shame. I cannot even ponder it. This season, every game, every goal, every period, every save, every power play, every penalty kill, every practice, every shift change. Everything is so important for the future of the Oiler franchise. So if you're an Oilers fan, fasten your seatbelt. You're about to go on a roller coaster ride like never before. Damn. It must be the 2nd week of September. Your opinion matters. Tweet at Cam Tait. Or camtait@gmail.com. For the 2-minute warning with Cam, Ta, and I'm Tony from Voxbox.
There you go. Taters. Inaugural 2-minute warning. That puts it nicely. There's lots on the line this year, but hey, I think that's obvious. The players, they're all in town early. I've covered the team for 20 years. I've never seen the entire team in town 2 weeks before the season began. So training camp began. So good for them. And now, hey, let's get to the Chronicles, brought to you by Action Electrical, family-run business that is now celebrating their 50th anniversary. It's coming up later this month. 50 years, man. That is amazing. That is an unbelievable success story. Don started it. Now Blake, his son, has taken over. It's amazing. They got great morals and they've got great prices. Check them out. actionelectrical.net. And we welcome to the show. He will be a weekly guest every Wednesday on the show from Oilers Nation. Oilers Nation every day. Tyler Yaremchuk. Ty, how you doing?
My Jason Gregor Show debut as a guest. I guess I've produced it a couple of times in the past, but as a fan of the Chronicles, I'm excited to be a part of it moving forward.
Oh, buddy. And big shout out. Ty yesterday was working overtime. He's behind the digital team for our YouTube channel, and was, there was a really good battle. Like yesterday was I wish I could have videoed the battle between Yaremchuk and the cameras because it was hotly contested.
Yeah, it was pretty intense and like hot temperature wise. The cameras were like just overheating and turning off. It was mayhem. But today we are at the 46-minute mark of the show, and knock on wood, nothing gone wrong.
Hey,
yet.
you know what? If that was the worst thing that happens to us on day one, I thought that was
Fair
pretty
enough.
good. So
Fair
that
enough.
was excellent. Do you agree with Tater's 2-minute warning? The pressure on for the Oil this year?
I mean, how could you say anything else? Like I've been talking to, people that I run into and buddies, and they're like, oh, like, are you excited for the season? Excited for the season? And I'm like, I have a hard time really getting up for this Oilers season because the regular season for them kind of doesn't matter. Like they need to find a way to get up for it themselves, but like the regular season is going to go on and this team will be judged on what they do in the postseason.
That's fair. I actually think the regular season, what I'm watching for specifically is how are they going to handle what's been their Achilles heel for the last few years, which has been when you've got that key moment, they make the wrong error. We saw it in the second period of game 5 and 6 in Vegas because games or 5 and 6 periods 1 and 3, they were the better team by far. And I, you know what? McDavid talked about Leon Draisaitl. They didn't hide from it. And that's what I respected from them. And that to me is when I watch October and November, I think the results are there. Like the Oilers have won under Jay Woodcroft. They got the second most wins. They led the league in scoring. Goals aren't an issue. We all know can they limit goals? And are their best guys, because the third line gets scored on, the fourth line gets scored on, but their top guys play the other team's best players. And usually, that's the tougher guys to shut down. So how is Nurse and McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and Hyman, Ceci, Bouchard, Ekholm, how are they going to be in crunch time?
Yeah, and I guess for me, like, if this team puts up 125 points in the regular season, but they lose in round 2, if they lose in 5 games in round 3, like, the season will go down as a failure, even if you are a juggernaut for 82 games. And whether that's fair or not, I don't know, but I just feel like that's the stage they're kind of at. No, right? Like, if they go to game 7 of the Western Conference Final, this fan base is going to be bitterly disappointed in that.
It's true. And you know what? And ask the San Jose Sharks. So Doug Wilson just got the gig in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
For 16 seasons, nobody won more games than the San Jose Sharks in the regular season. They won the second most in the playoffs. Like they were a really good organization and just got to the Stanley Cup final. They got to lots of conference finals, but they never won. There's no guarantee, right? Like I know it's true that most guys have a little scar tissue built up. Tampa Bay had some, obviously Colorado had some, Vegas, they had some. I think the Oilers got their deepest scar last year, but it's not a guarantee because the one thing that's hard is you get a key injury at the wrong time. And it doesn't matter what you do. Yeah. If you get an injury in the end of March and it's McDavid or Draisaitl or who knows, maybe it's Nurse who's playing 25 minutes, that's a pretty big one to overcome.
It can absolutely sink you. I mean, we even saw, though, with Vegas, I mean, sometimes the breaks just go your way, right? You said this on the DFO rundown the other day, but like Laurent Brossoit gets hurt. Aiden Hill comes in and is like, whatever, the second coming of a young Patrick Waugh. And it's like, if Laurent Brossoit doesn't go down, who knows how that series plays out, right? So it's just interesting to see the breaks. And that's where I guess professional sports is cruel, right? Like, again, if the Oilers make it to the conference finals and Draisaitl goes down and misses 3 games in the series and they lose, the fan base isn't going to go, shucks. Good try, guys. That's a tough one. They're going to be pissed.
Yeah, no. That's very fair. Tyler Yaremchuk joins us in the Chronicles. The Oilers, there's not a lot of, this might be the least competitive training camp as far as open spots. I think there's got a lot of internal competition, right? Like is Cody Ceci a lock all year long to be with Darnell Nurse? We'll see. But, where's Dylan Holloway going to slot in? But Raphael Lavoie, Lane Peterson, Gagne, Sutter, basically they're battling for potentially just one spot because the Oilers right now with the salary cap, they're only going to take 12 forwards and 11 seem to be locks right now, barring injury.
Yeah. And actually, this is a question I almost want to flip back to you. So when you look at Gagne, Peterson, Sutter, and those guys, is there not an element of they need to be so good in training camp that it makes the Oilers comfortable with putting Lavoie on waivers? Like that's a 2nd round pick who you've committed a lot of time to developing that guy. And are you going to sit there and go, well, Sam Gagne was a little bit better in the preseason, so we're waiving Lavoie. We might lose him for nothing. And granted, he's not a guy who I think is like a lock to get claimed or anything like that. But in my opinion, like those guys who are competing with Lavoie need to be significantly better than him to outweigh the risk of potentially losing him for nothing.
Well, Raphael Lavoie, I love the fact that he bet on himself.
He did.
Right? He took his qualifying offer. A lot of people felt like, he would have said, "Nah, I'm not going to take it." And then he would have renegotiated a contract, probably got a little bit more base in the American League. But he says, "No, I'm taking it." And I look at Raphael Lavoie, when you're 6'4" and you're 215 pounds, if Raphael Lavoie has a decent preseason, it opens eyes, because there's not many 6'4" guys around who can shoot the puck like him, right? In the league. And so a team like Arizona or a team like Anaheim or other bottom feeder teams would look and say, you know what? We'll take the risk on him. We'll put him in our 23-man roster to start the season, because I think some of them are writing him off a little too early.
And again, maybe it's his age or whatever. And I don't think he's a guy who's got, high-end top 4 potential by any means. But in his first season in the NHL, he came up and looked very comfortable as an everyday NHL defenseman. That's a big plus. And I feel like you're right. A lot of people are just kind of looking at him and pretending like there's no room for growth. Like, oh, yeah, that's who Desharnais is. But then with Broberg, and again, I know the age, but with Broberg, it's like, well, you never know. There's potential top 4. Ooh, he's the mystery box. And it's like, well, Desharnais also, he can do the job every day. And he's played, 60 NHL games. He could be better than he was last year. That's something not a lot of people are, I guess, willing to admit or accept.
Desharnais is 6'7". He skates well for a big man.
Yep.
He's not a 6'7", early 2000s 6'7" NHL player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 6'7" guy who can move, and he's mean. He knows how to penalty kill. He blocks shots. Like, I've talked to Vinny when the season ended, and we had a conversation. He had outlined his whole summer plan already. He knew what he was doing with the skills coach on ice. He goes, I know exactly what I need to work on, and these are the things we're going to work on. And I'm very intrigued to see what he looks like when he comes here, because look at the evolution of, now, I'm not saying he's going to be Zdeno Chara, but Zdeno Chara that you saw in Boston, that wasn't the Zdeno Chara early in his career, man. When you're 6'7", it just takes you a little bit longer to kind of understand how to move your body.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who keep bringing up to me, oh, how are they going to replace Costin's toughness? Are they losing that element? And you know what? No one on the other team is screwing around that much with Vinny Desharnais on the ice. Even if he doesn't drop the mitts a ton or whatever, if you have a 6'7", pretty scary looking defenseman out there, no one's messing with your stars.
No. Well, the thing was, the Oilers, they were 23rd in fights last year, right? The thing about Klim Kostin was his enjoyment. Like, he literally enjoyed fight. There's that's kind of a little bit of an old school train of thought. Like, because when he went, it was against LA in the regular season. Remember, they were getting pounded that game. I think it was 7-2. It was late. There's 5 minutes left. And so he lines up with Brendan Lemieux, and he said, no defense. And like, guys were talking about, they're like, what? What are you talking about? No defense in the fight? Because that means you're just going to throw slobber knockers and may the best punch win. Like, there's just not a lot of guys who do that. And that's intimidating. And so I think they'll miss Klim Kostin in some senses, no question. But the Oilers have enough toughness with Kane, with Desharnais and Nurse at the top. And I think they've got enough team toughness overall. They're like, Zach Hyman will fight. Nugent Hopkins, we saw what he can do if you want to get into the middleweight category. I think the Oilers are fine.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I always argue that they'll probably miss Costin's 11 goals in 55 games or whatever, more than they'll miss the 6 or 7 fights. But again, we talked about Lavoie. You have Holloway. There's enough upside in this forward group that I think you should be very confident that that Costin absence is going to be covered internally.
Ty, great stuff on the first hit on the Chronicles. We look forward to having you every Wednesday on the show.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, Greg. Talk to you next week.
There you go. That is Tyler Yaremchuk. That's the Chronicles, brought to you by Action Electrical, the professionals since 1973. They are celebrating 50 years. I'll give you guys a few more hints on our Who Is It Wednesday guest because he's coming up right away. We'll see if you can figure it out during the break. He is one of only 18 players in NHL history to play 1,100 games and have 2,000 penalty minutes. He was a captain of an NHL team. He also won 2 Stanley Cups, and his junior jersey is retired by the team he played junior with. That on top of he played for 5 NHL teams. Of course, played over 1,000 NHL games. If you know who it is, text in 833-401-1440 or get on the chat line at the YouTube channel for Oilers Nation. Can you guess who it is? We'll tell you after Connor Halley coming up in a Sports Center update brought to you by BIE Engineering, your structural engineering specialist. Whether you're in the process of reno or building your dream home, BIE can help you out. Go to BIEENG.com. Here's Connor Halley in a Sports Update.
It's time for a Sports 1440 top of the hour update.
Good news for Niners fans as defensive end Nick Bosa agreeing to a 5-year, $170 million contract extension with the team that includes $122.5 million guaranteed. The 3-time Pro Bowler will now become the highest paid player in the NFL's history on the defensive side of the ball. Joe Burrow was a full practice participant in Cincinnati. He'll be good to go for week 1. Tough news for the Rams, though. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp, he's been ruled out for week 1 when they take on the Seahawks with the hamstring injury. Kupp missed 8 games last season due to injury. From the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs signed forward Noah Gregor to a professional tryout contract earlier today. Gregor posted 10 goals and 17 points in 57 games last season with the Sharks. Major League Baseball, bottom of the 5th. The Athletics have a 2-1 lead over the Blue Jays. Also heading into the 4th, the Rockies trail the Diamondbacks 6-5. And in the 3rd, Phillies lead the Padres 1-0. Still to come today, the Rays will take on the Red Sox, Dodgers in Miami. The Nationals host the Mets. White Sox take on the Royals. Astros in Texas to take on the Rangers. And some other finals. Cubbies knocked off the Giants 8-2. It was the Guardians over the Twins 2-1. And the Brewers falling to the Pirates 5-4. Coming up in hour 2 of the Jason Gregor Show, we debut Who Is It?
only regulated online gambling website.
To impress your clients. Go to ewel.ca and learn more. And we're very excited. We have a whole new segment. This is something we're going to do every Wednesday. I kind of stole the idea a little bit from the Smartless podcast where, they would, one host would bring on the guest and the other two hosts didn't know who it was. So in this instance, the listeners, you're the other host. So we've given you the hints on who it's going to be as we get to our big guest of the day, brought to you by Silent Ice. They've now expanded. They own the JPHL, an academy-style approach for U14, U15, and U18 hockey players with a focus on skill development and education. Learn more at juniorprospectshockeyleague.com. Our first inaugural guest in Who Is It Wednesday is one of only 18 players in NHL history to have played over 1,100 games and have over 2,000 penalty minutes. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. His junior jersey is retired. He played for 5 NHL teams. He's been involved in pro hockey for 28 years. He's moonlit as a personal trainer for some of his former teammates, carrying weights upstairs, from what I understand. We'll get more into that. He's also a 2-time Stanley Cup winner and was a captain of the Edmonton Oilers. And JP did get it right in the text line. Kelly Buchberger, effectively known as Bucky, joins us. Kelly, how are you, my man?
Great, Jason. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be out here, and you guys are doing such a great job out here. I know you're a couple days in, but it's going to be a great show for everybody.
Well, hey, man, we're happy to have you here. You're still in game shape, man. I got the story from Craig McTavish because last year I ran into him in the summertime. I'm like, hey, Mac, how you doing? Geez, you're looking good. And he's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm up with training with Bucky. He's got me at the bottom of the stairs on Fox Drive, and he's putting weights on me, and he's running up the stairs. And I, how he was explaining the story, I was dying laughing. So you're you're hardcore still into training.
No, I still do it every day, and it's something that I enjoy doing. Not all the time, especially after a late night. It's not great getting into that gym, but I took Mac the one day to the stairs. I don't know if you know, it's in Westridge, and they're really hard. And I had taken with a weight jacket, and then up and down, and we did it a few times, and we ended up jumping in the North Saskatchewan for a little swim. It was almost 35 that day.
Oh, man. So, what is your training? How are you 2 hours a day or an hour a day? What are you doing?
I'm probably a little over 2 hours a day, get up early, get it done, and then start my day. And it just seems like it's a workout, and it's a lunch with the boys and golf and dinner with the boys, and then sweat it out the next morning.
Now, how's your golf game? What do you shoot?
We're doing okay. It's up and down just like everybody else, but I play a lot with Mac. We played the Mayfair last night and we caught in the rain, but we have some pretty good games with one another, and also Crystal Chances in that mix also.
Okay. So now we'll get to what you're doing. Of course, your assistant.
They're out every night enjoying the city life, and I don't know if you remember, but we were at Esmeralda's the night before the game, and we got into it with had a late night and everything else, and I got back, I have no idea what time it was, and we usually practice early before the main team, and I went there early about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock to get dressed and go skate, and Ronnie Lowe was skating us at that time, and my equipment wasn't there, and I'm like, oh God, he heard that I was out, and Sparky came to me and he said, hey, Kelly, Glenn wants to talk to you. So I walk in, and he's got his legs crossed, he's got a cigar in his mouth, and he goes, kid, did you get any sleep last night? And I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. And he goes, okay, well, what time did you get to sleep? I said, oh, I don't know. And he goes, well, you think you can play tonight? I go, what? He goes, "Do you think you can play tonight?" I said, "Yeah." And so obviously I went to the main dress room, got dressed, went on the ice with the big team, and the rest is history from there. But that's my opening game to the NHL.
So had you skated with the big team prior to that?
Not once, no. Just in the pregame skate, in the morning skate against Philadelphia.
So you never really practiced with the team. And now we're talking some of the greatest players of all time, right? There's Messier, and then of course there's Gretzky and all them. And then you mentioned the fact that you'd been out carousing the night before. Like, how nervous were you?
Well, I would think I was only 19, so I wasn't. I was nervous. There's no question about that. But there's a little bit of a story after that. After I got my first shift, I had fought Dave Brown, and I come out of the penalty box, and Paul Coffey leans over, and as you know, that the fourth liners are the bookmarkers of the D and the forwards, and he goes, "Kid, you just got yourself a ring." And I still remember it from that vivid from that night.
Because you played in the Stanley Cup final, yeah.
Yep. And then I played 3 games, and we beat Philadelphia and in 86, 87.
It's amazing how in tune some guys are. Just you're sitting on the bench here and you just, hey, you got yourself a ring, and you're just kind of like, man, I'm just trying to focus on the game here. Or is that good? Does that almost kind of relieve the pressure a little bit when someone makes a comment like that?
I think it was even the year before when I got drafted and I came into the Oilers, and it was amazing how welcoming the veterans were, like the Gretzkys, the Messiers, the Kevin Lowe's. I roomed with Craig McTavish when we both came in at the same time with the Oilers, and they were so welcoming, and they just invited everybody into everything. And we were like a family. Even though I wasn't part of the team, they made me part of their family, and it was really easy to adjust. You just didn't say much, and you just watched and listened for years.
Kelly Buchberger joins us, our guest on Who Is It Wednesday. Of course, we mentioned Bucky. You're 140th all time in games played in NHL history. You are, and memorize it. You're 34th all time in penalty minutes. You're one of only 18 guys to play over 1,100 games and have 2,000 penalty minutes. And, like, it's hard to do both. Like, it's hard to stay healthy and do all that. And any Oiler fan who watched the Oilers, because you were there when you won, and then you were one of the main guys for kind of those dark years for the 4 years there. And everybody remembers how you played. And you mentioned Dave Brown. Like, you fought a lot of the real big guys, and you weren't necessarily in the heavyweight size. Your heart was there, but like, you were giving up 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 3-4 inches. Why? Like, what made you want to do that all the time?
Well, it's funny you say that, because when I started coaching with Pat Quinn after, and Gino Ojek, God bless his soul, Pat loved him, and he came into the dress room, and we're in Vancouver, and he gives Pat a big hug. He just loved Pat. And then he looks at me, he goes, "Why?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "Why would you like to get beat up all the time?" Quote from Gino Ojek. But I think it's one of those things that I had to do something to get noticed, and do something that the coaches caught their eye. And plus, you needed to improve every day. You had to get better as a player, and you bring one element, then you can try and bring another element. But it's about trying to improve every day. And when you do that, and it doesn't matter whatever business you're in, if you're improving every day and getting better, you're going to have success. And that's probably why I played so long, is that every day I had to prove that I belonged in this league.
Well, you were a great skater, right? And you pretty much gave everything you had in every shift. I think anybody who watched what it says, hey, the one thing with Buchberger, you kind of knew what you were getting. Every shift, every coach I've talked to, they like players where they know they don't really, like, I know what game I'm going to get from him every night. How did you learn that? Because it's a skill to find that competitiveness and that consistency in regard, whether you're a checker, whether you're an offensive guy, and lots of players struggle with it. How'd you find it?
I don't think I had it in junior. Obviously I was a 9th rounder, and I come in, and I just gravitated. I spent a lot of time with Craig McTavish when I was a kid. And all I did for the first 4 or 5 years was I listened, didn't say anything, and just watched and learned from the greatest players that probably of all time that played for the Oilers. But then it came our time to lead. And I thought, I took the things that I learned from all those guys, and even from the coaches, from the Glenn Saylors, John Mucklers, Teddy Greens, and Ronnie Lowe's, that they were great leaders, great coaches, but great leaders at the same time.
Kelly Buchberger joins us. And so you evolve as a player. Take us back to 93 and 94 and 95 and 96 from a guy who, like, there's no guarantees you're going to win every year, but you were on competitive teams all the time. And winning's fun. Like, let's make no mistake about it. I don't know anybody who's like, I'm having a good time getting my ass kicked, right? Like, that's not good. How challenging was it for you as somebody who had been in those, and then you were one of the few guys left over when you had those few down years, and then obviously came back in 97 and 98, and everybody knew in the salary cap or the non-salary cap era that you guys were pushing a boulder uphill, but at least you were competitive. How tough was it for you mentally in those 4 down years?
It was tough. I think it was tough for everybody, with the players, the coaches, the fans, especially. At times, I think we get like 8,000 people to the games in Rexall, but you got to think that we had our turn, and the cycle was turning to where we were coming back down to. And then it took a couple of years, and then we had some good draft picks that come in, some good trades, like a Dougie Waite come in. We got Luke Richardson. We had Dave Manson, Billy Ranford came in the mold, and then Cujo obviously come in. And after that, we had not a lot of success, but we, won a couple rounds and got in, and it was one of those things that we all gelled together. We were young, really naive of the league, but played hard.
Kelly Buchberger joins us on Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260. And Kelly, so you had a successful playing career. How hard was it for you when you left in the expansion draft to Atlanta? Were you ready to go? Was it like once you were, exposed, did you feel like, okay, now's the right time? Or was it, a little bit bittersweet to leave the only organization you knew?
Well, I really didn't want to leave. There's no question about that. And I had got hurt. I broke my arm the year before at Christmas time, when it was out for pretty much the half of the season, come back in playoffs. But you know what? It was one of the best moves for our family. We moved to Georgia in Atlanta. We had bought a house there, but as you know, the expansion teams back then weren't that great. And then Donnie Waddell had asked me a couple times if I wanted to get traded out west again, and I said no, I'm good. Hey, listen, we're happy here. Our family's in school. Everybody, blah blah. And then he had lost 9-1 or 9-0 to Jersey, and then he was waiting for me outside the dressing room. And he goes, Kelly, are you ready to talk to me? I said, yeah. He goes, I got some teams that are interested in you. Come and see me. And you know what? It was moving around from community and city to city. And we went to LA after that and moved on to different places. But it was great for the kids, because the kids never seen anything else but Edmonton. And when they started seeing different cities and we'd go to football games, baseball games, it was really a different culture for the kids.
Well, and that's a bonus for sure. Because your kids, they were okay with moving at that time. Like, obviously, if the family unit stays together, that definitely makes it easier. But, I've heard lots of players talk about, hey, it's kind of easy for me, but, then my wife's got to pack up all the kids and move and different things like that. You did get to move in the offseason, though, a few times. So I'm sure that makes it a tad easier. But when you went to Atlanta, like, it's Atlanta, Georgia, it's not necessarily a hockey hotbed. How was it, in those first few years in Atlanta? Like, was it like hockey 101 where you're having to teach people everything?
Well, we were sold out. We were selling out all the time because it was a new product in the city. And from the baseball, as we know, the Braves were really good then, the basketball team and the football team. But we were new, so we were selling out. They had the new Phillips Arena that they changed the style of it. They had all the press boxes and luxury boxes on one side, and then all the bleachers on the other side.
Okay.
And so it was a kind of a new opening for everybody, even the players, this new concept of the rink. But I think that year it was fun, but then it was challenging for everybody, and just not me, for all the players that were there, because I don't know how many players we went through. I'm sure the roster list was 2 pages long. There's no question about that. I think we went through 9 goalies, and I feel bad for Kurt Fraser. Kurt Fraser was the coach,
yes,
and Fraz was a really good coach. He had won the IHL the year before, and when you're playing with guys that sometimes maybe they don't belong in their certain chairs, but you're still playing them, and it's tough on the coaches in that area.
Now, you say that speaking like a coach now, right? Because you've been coaching for, over a decade, at the NHL level and the American League level. When you were playing, was coaching something you always wanted to do?
It was actually in the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years of my career, I started going to the coaches, and And it was actually, I started with Dave Tippett in LA, and I was asking him for their practice plans after each practice.
Okay.
And I'd build a binder from all the teams that I go through. And then from then on, I had all this knowledge from the coaches, and I talked to them all the time. And when you get older, you spend a lot of time with the coaches because you're pretty much closer to their age than you are with the younger guys. And, but they were great. The practice plans, but I always wanted to stay in the game, and coaching was number one. There's no question. And I have moved around a little bit, but I love it. I love being with the kids. I love to see the kids develop and get better. And whatever I can bring to the table with these kids, my days are filled.
Kelly Buchberger joins us on Edmonton Sports 1440. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about the evolution, the change into coaching, what he's learned. Obviously, we'll talk about him right now as assistant coach in Laval when we return on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, live on Sports 1440 and online at the YouTube channel for Oilers Nation.
PlayAlberta.ca.
We are back. Wednesday edition of the Gregor Show on Sports 1440 live. If you are watching us online on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. We got a lot of subscribers. Our goal is to get 250 every day. So hit the button, and you'll be winning some tickets in October to see some of the Oilers regular season games. And speaking of the Oilers, of course, we have one of the former captains of the Edmonton Oilers in studio today for our first ever Who Is It Wednesday. We gave you some hints in hour number 2. A few of you figured it out. We don't make it too easy. Kelly Buchberger's with us, of course, played over 1,200 NHL games, has over 2,200 penalty minutes, 300 points, 2 Stanley Cups. His jersey's retired in Moose Jaw. Now, of course, my nephew played there, and I remember I saw Brian Souther because they have kind of 2 levels. They have the jersey retirement, and they have like a wall of honor, similar to what the Oilers are doing now with their wall of fame. Take me back to kind of when you got the call that you're going up in the rafters in Moose Jaw. How big of a deal was that for you as a Saskatchewan kid?
Well, I came in there. I went to Moose Jaw a couple of years before that, and at 14 and played midget there. And then I ended up going to Melville, the Melville Millionaires, and played in the Saskatchewan Junior League. But then when I went there, we had it was an expansion team from Winnipeg, the Warriors.
Yeah.
And I think we only had 1 player from the previous team, but we were very young. There was guys like Mike Keane, Darren Fleury, Lyle Oline, Jim McKenzie, and a couple other guys that ended up playing in the NHL. But it was one of those things. It was a learning curve for everybody coming into the league because no one else had played in the league except for one guy, and I can't remember his name. And we were so young and inexperienced. And you know, when you got the call after, I only played 2 years for the Warriors and had left. But it was Mike Keane and I and Darren Fleury that played on the line. Yeah. And I think it's the 3 of us jerseys are retired, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And, you know, like you guys, that was a really good line. No question about it. And it's always funny because I think there's so many people that they see NHL guys and, you know, you're a 3rd or 4th liner. People, oh, he's just a 3rd or 4th liner. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's still like the top 0.01%. Most of these guys were first liners in junior. You know, you played a physical, robust style. So maybe it was a little bit easier for you to transition to being a, you know, an energy guy in the bottom 6. But as a coach, is that not one of the hardest things to do, is to convince guys who are really high-end offensive players at junior that they're just not going to be able to do that role in the NHL?
Well, we see it in the AHL. There's no question, because we get all the players that come, and they're young kids coming from junior and college. And let's just, like you said, that they're usually on the 1st and 2nd line. And when you get all these players into one place and you got to put them in a chair that suits them, that gives them a chance to play in the NHL. And that's our job in the American Hockey League, is to put them in an area where they can succeed. And the thing is that we look at it in Laval is that we have our 1st and 2nd line are kind of A+ or whatever, but we want to have 2 third lines. We don't have an enforcer or a guy that plays a role at that. I think our team had maybe 10 fights last year. But if you play in the 3rd, 4th line, you got to be a penalty killer and you got to be a checker. And if they're not, we'll try and put them in that chair. But then, as you know, if they don't get it, they can't work out, we'll have to put them down in Three Rivers. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we enjoy putting them in different areas and them succeeding, but they all want to play on the power play. It's no different than the 9-year-old here at the mall or the Brick. They all want to play on the power play, but there's only 10 guys on the power play each game. And so we try and share the ice time with these kids so they can develop and they play. There's no more benching kids in the American Hockey League, because we need to play them. We need for them to succeed where they are right now. And the quicker that we can develop them and get them in the NHL, they always have a 2 to 3 year window to get in there. And if they don't make it after that, it's pretty slim after that 3rd year.
Kelly Buchberger joins us, and scoring is a real skill, and it's hard to do. Like, to score consistently is extremely hard to do. Being a consistent checker maybe is easier in one sense, but it's a real mental challenge, because at sometimes, you know, you got to kind of maybe lower your ability to want to try a dangerous play. As a coach, how can you help players accept and understand how to be a good checker?
Well, every team needs them. There's no question. You look at Edmonton coming in. You have a Draisaitl and McDavid coming in, and then you have guys that are in the NHL that are going to check, like a Bergeron, which is a great player, but he can play it both ways. There's no question. But then you got guys that can check and play hard against those guys, and it's an art. You got to be disciplined. You got to make the right choice with the pucks. You got to make sure that your angles are good and you're communicating with your teammates when those guys are on the ice. But to get those guys to buy in, that's their ticket to the NHL, is that they're not going to score you 30 goals or 20 goals in the American Hockey League. They're going to get there by being disciplined and an all-around good hockey player.
What would be, if you're coaching and a young guy comes in and says, okay, I want to be a better penalty killer. How do you become a better penalty killer?
Well, it's about reads. There's no question about that. And Edmonton has the best power play for how many years now? The last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And we know that the talent they have, that they're going to succeed. But the same thing is that when you're killing penalties, you got to read. And I think everybody talks about it, is your goalie has to be your best penalty killer. And I always watched Patrick Waugh when I played against him. He knew where the shots were coming from. And back then they weren't doing video. So he was doing his own reading, navigating what was going on, and knew where the shots were coming from, and he was square to the shooter all the time. And I think when you have players like that are smart and know where the shots are going to come, you're going to sacrifice yourself. You're going to make the clears. You're going to make yourself as big as possible, and you're going to read as 4 guys on the ice. Then you're going to have success. But you got to show them. With our group now, you show them a lot of video. I don't run the PK. I run the power play. But these guys that watch it, they watch it and they're in depth. They ask questions. They're into it now. So
you're running the power play from what are some of your things that you believe that make, because certain guys just have skill. Like Glenn Galton, I've talked to him lots. He's like, hey man, lots of times like McDavid and Draisaitl, like we have certain set plays, but then there's a lot of ad-libbing. That just has to happen, right? A puck bounces off a shin pad, it's in the corner, defenseman's out of position, boom, bang, you score. So as a power play coach, is it just more about zone entries? And then when you're in, it's like, okay, ad lib, or at the American League level, is it maybe a little bit more structured to ensure guys are going to the right place more often?
It always starts with the face-off. And our key is that we put 4 guys right on the circle, and it's called a sweeper that you get. Because if you get that face-off right away, that gives you 20 more seconds of power play time. And we put a lot of work into that face-off face-off plays and everything. And the same thing is winning those puck battles. If there's a puck battle, 50-50 puck battle, you have to win it. You have to get in it, because then you can get set up. And like the Oilers and everybody else, we play a 1-3-1, but we move around a little bit. Not like the Oilers, because no one moves around like the Oilers, but you have to have structure on your power play. And there is time to freelance. We know that. And as you just mentioned, the Oilers do it a lot, but they have the guns to do it, to freelance and make things happen. And I feel like the breakouts, everybody kind of uses the same breakouts. Every team probably has 8-9 breakouts they'll use. And you get in on the retrieval is key too. You got to get numbers in there. You got to when those battles get set up, but the movement is key, and is finding a way to get it through the guys, because the guys are willing to block shots like they were for years. And you got to make sure you get it to the blue paint, and then you got to get numbers in there, and it goes on and on and on. But this is how we try and teach our kids, and the same thing that Montreal teaches, and we bring it to our team.
Kelly Buchberger joins us on Sports 1440. Kelly, you mentioned your last 4 or 5 years of your career, started with Dave Tippett. Hey, give me the practice plan. You take the practice plan home and you saved them all. You had it in your binder. So then when you were done playing, and you got into coaching, and if you look at Kelly Buchberger now compared to Kelly Buchberger 15 years ago as a coach in pro hockey, how different are you? Like, what was the hardest learning curve for you as a coach?
I think at the start is that I still wanted to play. And being assistant coach right away, I just thought, but I learned so much as a coach. But the biggest learning curve that I did is that I went to junior and I coached for 3 years. And when you coach junior hockey, is that you have one assistant coach and you guys do it all. We do it all, from school to hockey to planning, everything. And I think that was the biggest learning curve for me, is that I got to be a better coach when I did that, because I was involved with everything. When you're a assistant coach, in the NHL, you might just have the PK. So what do you focus on every day is your PK. And if they score against your PK, you're dying. And there's no question. And or you run the D, or you run the forwards, or and everybody has their position they're going to play in. But when you wear all the hats in junior, you get to be a better coach. And I felt that was a great move for me to go back to junior and coach and learn more and more responsibility.
So you go back to being in junior, and then you coach in the AHL, and then you coach in the NHL, and then you went back again to Tri-Cities in junior. But that was almost like a decade in between, maybe even longer for that. And just in a decade, how different it was and how you communicate with young kids, right? How do we maybe even undervalue just how important that communication factor is for coaches? And that a lot of times some coaches are maybe like, you're done before you even start because you're not communicating properly.
You have to communicate with the kids now. And when I was in junior, there was no more yelling at the players. They didn't respond to it. And we never did. Brian Pellerin and myself, we never, ever, ever yelled at the kids. We were always great with them and put a lot of time in them. And they responded better. And they felt that we respected them and they respected us. And back in the day, the coaches would never talk to you unless they were sending you down or benching you or not playing you. But now you have to communicate with the players every day. You show them individual video pretty much after every game. And besides everything else, the pre-plans of pre-scouts, you're invested with these kids because you got probably 23 kids there that all want to play in the NHL. They all want to play in the NHL. It doesn't matter if they're in junior or they're the East Coast League or the American Hockey League. They all want to play in the NHL. So if they feel like you're not respecting them and putting the time in, you're going to get exactly what you deserve back. And I feel like our group with JF Wool, he does a great job communicating with the players, and we follow his lead.
It's interesting how, the coaching, just in society, everything's evolved. Communication is a lot more open now than it ever was before. But there are still some players like that. They want you to challenge them sometimes. Like somebody needs a little bit of a kick in the pants, not figuratively, of course, you know what I mean? But, and where some guys do need the pat on the back. Are you better at deciphering that quickly, or do you just come out and ask guys? And our players pretty honest, say, you know what? I don't mind if every now you get on me, that helps me. Whereas other guys like, you know what? I function better when I'm getting positive. Or do you just kind of have to figure that out as a coach?
I think it's just like being a parent. You feel out what you get the best out of your kids and how do you get your kids motivated to be their best every day in school and in life in general. And I feel like if we communicate with the kids like they communicate with one another, but you still got to be their advisor. But the same thing is that no one likes to be scolded. No one, including ourselves, coaches. But the same thing though, if you show them so much respect and you get it back, you're going to have a great relationship with those players and they're going to talk to you. I still talk to my kids from junior all the time. And they call me for advice and stuff like that because I had a great relationship and I communicated with them every day. And I did stuff with them. I worked out with them. I did everything. But you have to have that passion with those kids and they feel it.
Can you do the Michigan?
I can't. I cannot do the Michigan. I never will.
Now, because the young kids, they try lots of new things. It's pretty unique. But when you're coaching the young guys in Tri-Cities, you weren't trying after practice, joking around. Did they get close? Did you ever get close, or did you never even try?
I don't even think that Michigan was scored then at that time when I was there. But they try everything. But one thing, the kids in junior is that they're hungry and. Our practices sometimes were an hour and a half and they were fine with that. We'd resurface halfway through, but they wanted to go back out and then we'd have to kick them off the ice because, hey, it was an hour and a half, you guys. And we had a lot of Edmonton boys on our team, a lot. And guys from St. Albert and Calgary. And our team was mostly built out of Alberta boys, but they were great to work with. Absolutely great to work with.
Kelly Buchberger joins us on Sports 1440. Final break this hour. When we come back, we're going to have a little question period with Kelly on the Jason Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Some things just work together. Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Edmonton's a real blue collar town, and like a lot of fans always seem to remember kind of how you played. You know, you said earlier, like, hey, sometimes at a fight I had to do something to stand out, and it definitely. I think a lot of people respected that. Did you, like, in your interactions over the years in Edmonton, is that kind of the sense that people are just like, yeah, you know what, like, yeah, they had Gretzky and the Messiers, but Buchberger's just like lots of fans here have different favorite players depending on their style.
Yeah, I think so. And Edmonton, we know, is a blue collar city, but they're wonderful people and they're very knowledgeable about the game. They respect what you do in the game, and it doesn't matter if you're a fourth liner or a first liner. They respect what you do because where you got to, and our fans are very knowledgeable here in Edmonton. They know the game well, and they never forget a player.
No, not for sure. Especially obviously when you're a captain, you had the unique helmet. You still got it?
We still got it. Yeah, we have it in our office. It's changed a few stickers now and then. I still have it. Yeah.
Now, do you play at all? Like you could easily play. You must go. Do you ever go to the alumni skates?
No, well, I'm with Montreal all the time in Laval, but I skate with the kids all the time after it. We always have extras, and so we play 3-on-3. And I always say, boys, prison rules, and they don't get it till they start playing against me.
So you still got the slash down pretty good?
Oh yeah, we got it all. We have it all. And
well, you got to any advantage you can, right? Experience helps.
Yeah, but they love it. Like we have it all set up. Who gets new jerseys and stuff like that. But I think that's the most enjoyment that all the players and myself get out after practice because we're back in just playing a shinny game.
Yeah, it's fun as kids. Now I want to go back to you mentioned earlier how you felt like you always wanted to improve as a player. Well, you improved the 1 year, scored 20 Genos, right? So when you scored 20 goals. Did you, not that you would change your style, but did you all of a sudden internalize and say, like, you know what, like, I'm capable of this. I should do this more often?
Well, it was one of those things that it just happened right away that things just started clicking that year. But one of the biggest things is I never forgot what I did before, and it kept me in the league. And it was one of those seasons that it seemed like everything I touched went in the net, and I improved as a player. And I was right in the middle of my career. And I had a lot of people that helped me out. Like I spent a lot of time too with Craig Simpson. And I remember saying to Simmer one time, I said, Simmer, you just signed for $300,000. I go, how are you going to spend all that money? I go, where are you going to spend it? And I go, you get a free car? Like you don't have any bills. And, but with him, I spent time with him, Mac T and all these guys, but I never forgot where I come from and what I did and how I got to the league.
You practiced with some of the greatest players of all time. And, and they talked about how Gretzky elevated their game. It just made you better because they practiced hard, right? Was there, like, did you have a moment in practice that, you ran over the wrong guy inadvertently or anything? Do you remember, like, hitting Gretzky or Messier? Obviously, like, I know you guys played hard, but was there ever a time where you're like, oof, this isn't good?
Well, no, actually, funny you say that because my very first camp coming in and drafted in '85, I had ran Lee Fogelin, and I never really thought of it, and he slashed me, and I go, what? He goes, you don't run me, and I'm like, what? I pretty much didn't know who he was. Like I was a young kid from Saskatchewan, and I worked on the rigs. I spent time away from the game, and then I got to know Lee after, as he was the captain, and then passed it down to Gretz. But I was like, okay, well, apparently I can't run him, so I'll just, But that in those years, though, the leadership group were so strong, and like I said before in the interview, that they just brought everybody in. It didn't matter who you were. If you had a chance to make it, they were bringing you in and welcoming you to the Oilers.
So let's go back. You were working on the rigs in 1980 in the summertime.
It was in just after I got drafted. I worked with my brother and my cousin in Kenosee Lake. We lived in a 2-man pub tent for almost 2
Do you remember
months.
what job you did on the rigs?
Yeah, it was a roughneck.
Roughneck.
Yeah,
Nice. Did you have your name on your coveralls?
We didn't have a leasehound, so it was leasehound / roughneck.
Okay, leasehound / roughneck. You know what? Like, I worked in the oil field for a long time, man. I have the utmost respect for people in that job. Like, it's a tough job.
Yeah, it was a tougher life than the tougher job. Like,
Yeah.
It was 12-hour shifts, and then after the shifts, it was maybe more fun than we should have had.
Well, and the other, like, the safety regulations back in the 80s are a little bit different than what they have now in the rigs.
We didn't have any.
No.
No.
And so were you like situated in one place? Or did you travel around to lots of different ones that summer?
No, we were just in Kenosha the whole time, and I had left after a month and a half, I think it was, and just to prepare for the season and stuff like that.
Because back then you weren't really training in the off season, right? In the mid to late 80s.
No, we just went straight into skating, and I think when I went to camp, I think I only weighed like 175 at that time.
Your first camp, $175.
Yeah, I think something like
so
that.
Just like a coyote.
Yeah, nothing left.
So when did you learn? Who helped you learn how to work out properly?
It was one of those things that I'd watched the Oilers, but they never like when I started with the Oilers, they had a universal set in our lounge with 2 bikes, Fitron bikes, and all I did was gather clothes. The guys would just hang their clothes on it, and then I knew I had to get stronger and bigger, and I started working out with Mike Keane in Moose Jaw. We lived together in the summertime, and we just started listening to some of the guys that worked out there, like power lifters, what it was, and they just started feeding us some information, and we took it and we changed our bodies in one summer.
How much of a difference? And were you doing like a lot of like deadlifting, like squats? What were you doing back then?
We did a lot of heavy lifting, there's no question, and a lot of cardio. Like Mike and I would probably do an hour and a half of cardio every day besides our weights, and we were gym rats then. And it paid off for both of us because we both came to a couple of years later, came into camp in stronger, better shape, and giving ourselves a chance to make the team.
It's funny, you get into training camp now, and I always notice some people that they mock when someone says, "Hey man, I'm in the best shape of my life." Now, not every player says it, but lots of guys, and every year they are. Like, you played for many years. I'm sure Kelly Buchberger at 24, and then Kelly Buchberger at 27. You were likely in better shape at 27. Not that you suddenly were magically working out hard. You just had more experience, but you also had all those years of working out, and it just allowed you. Maybe it was a 1% or 2% difference. But did you notice that? And could you ever tell if somebody hadn't improved their conditioning?
Well, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine as the years went on in my career. And when the player went and he goes, "Hey, I'm in the best shape of my life." Well, you've just played 7 years in the league. Don't tell me that you didn't put any time in before that. Maybe because he's having a good year that year that he prepared himself. But my thing is that you've got to prepare every year. And now there's no hiding in this game today. So when the player comes in and he's played 5-6 years already in the league and goes, "I'm in the best shape of my life." Well, why weren't you in year 1 and year 2 and going on there? Because you shouldn't come into camp trying to get into shape. You got to be at that level right away. And I understand the Oilers are skating right now, and it's 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before. They're preparing, they're getting ready because they want to come out quick and hard, and probably similar to every other team in the NHL.
What do you make of something like that? Because it's rare to have the quote captain skates where everybody's in attendance 2 weeks before training camp.
I think they have a great chance of winning it, and with the leadership of Connor, Draisaitl, and the guys that they have there, that if they're this tight at this time of the year, it'll go throughout the season, and it'll give them a great chance.
You were a member of the organization in different roles for many, many years. Now you're obviously a member in Laval, the Montreal Canadiens organization. You've been there. This would be your 3rd year. Is it odd at times, like when you watch Edmonton, is there still a little blue and orange in Kelly Buchberger? Is that just natural, or do you kind of just temper it down while you're a member of another organization? How's that work?
No, I follow the Oilers. Problem is that it's 2 hours difference in time when the Oilers play. So I don't stay up for all the games, but there's no question. And it's hard to get it out of your blood. I still cheer for them when I watch them and stuff like that. And when they come to Montreal once a year, I come to the game and sit there and go down and talk to the coaches. Dave Manson is a really good friend of mine. And so I spend a little bit of time with him. And but it's going to be really exciting for these guys this year because I think Skinner is going to turn the corner. He got his feet wet last year, and he's going to be a really strong player for the Oilers this year.
Kelly, before I let go, I'd like to have a few little rapid fire kind of unique questions for you. So let's go back to what was your your favorite welcome to the NHL regular season moment? Because I know what your regular NHL moment was, of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs, but like your regular season moment for you.
Well, it took me a while to score my first goal, but I would say, you know what, it was. It's easy for me because he's still a really good friend of mine, Luke Richardson. He was playing for Toronto, and we had played Toronto early in the season, and we were both really young. And we got in a fight, and I ended up getting a lucky punch and breaking his nose, and the blood was all over. And then he got traded to Edmonton. And he goes, "Do you remember that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I remember that." I go, but we ended up becoming really good friends and really tight and spent a lot of time with him.
Oh, it's interesting. Very similar personalities in the on ice competitiveness between the two of you, I would think.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same. He's done an unreal job in Montreal when he was there, and got the head coach in Chicago, and they had a tough year last year. But as you know, that they got the first rounder, and
Bedard kid might be pretty good.
He's going to be okay for them, I think. And it was his time to be a head coach.
Who is the guy you literally did not like to play against?
I would say there's a few of them. You look at guys like a Bob Probert that could score 30 goals and have 30 fights, and he was always tough to play against. And I always thought it was always tough playing against him, but he was always fair. There's no question. He was an unreal competitive player, and he laid it on the line all the time. But I think the guy that scared me the most was probably Link Gates.
Oh, the missing link.
Yeah. There was a few issues there with him and I never really got the better of him.
Now, was there anybody that when you played, you're like, God, I hate this guy. And then when you're done and you're retired, you met him and you're like, oh, he's a pretty good guy.
Well, it's funny because back to Link, a few years ago, we were in the Alzheimer's hockey tournament, and we went to OTR after all the teams went there. And this guy taps me on the shoulder, and he's huge. He's just gigantic. And he goes, "Hey, Bucky, what's going on? What are you doing here?" And I'm like, and I had no idea who it was because he's just massive, a man. And he goes, "It's Link." I go, "Link?" He goes, "The missing link." He was working in the oil patch here on the pipeline.
Yeah.
And he had come out there to have a few beers, but we joked about the time he beat me up so bad. In the old Cow Palace. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah, in San Jose.
And we had to climb up probably 50 stairs to go up to the dressing room. And he had cut me for 37 stitches that time.
What?
And I had got halfway up and I had to have a rest because I think I ran out of blood.
So, man, like what? Because I asked you this question earlier about why did you do it, but was there ever one? Because sometimes guys have talked about you take a few Barney Rubbles in the back of the head and like it hurt for a long time. Sometimes, you get cut, but it didn't really hurt after the fact. Like, do you remember a time where there was a fight that like it was painful for many days after?
I think they all were. Like it didn't matter who it was, but I think you look at the guys like a Joey Kosher.
Oh, you hit hard.
And a Dave Brown, and you can go down like Probert, and these guys like. They were animals. But they were good players. Like they were good players. Like Joey Kosher could play the game, but he could hit.
Oh.
And he could hit you hard. But those guys, they're in a different league. There's no question about that. And I can't pinpoint one guy. I think they all hurt.
Is the 97 goal in overtime, is that the greatest Kelly Buchberger goal in your mind?
Yeah, it has to be. There's no question about that. And we had such a green team in the playoffs, and we had no business beating Dallas that year. But going back to that team, I always said that we played hard for Ron Lowe, and Ronnie was a great coach for us because his emotion, his energy brought us into the games all the time. And you look at our players and the team we had no business beating Dallas that year. but we found a way. Cujo, as we know, was unreal.
Yeah.
But everybody raised their game to another level. Todd Marchant, Dougie Waite, Ryan Smith. You can go down the list. We had some really good players, but they were young.
Where were you on the bench? Or maybe you were on the ice. I can't remember. On the Joe Nieuwendyk save for Joseph. And what went through your mind? Because it looked like the game was over.
It was unreal. Only Cujo could make that save. Maybe Billy Ranford could make that because Billy's pretty athletic. But Cujo was so athletic that that come back and make that save like he did was unreal. And I don't know. I can't remember. I was probably on the bench.
And Todd Marchant, who, struggled for many years when it came to breakaways, didn't struggle at one of the most key times in his career. Like you'd won Stanley Cup, so I'm not going to compare that. But when you look at maybe a satisfying playoff victory, is that one over Dallas, or was it the one in 98 over Colorado? Which one for you as a veteran player was more satisfying?
I think they both were. I think anytime you win any series, especially in the NHL, it's so hard to win those series, and especially the first series, because those are the best series to watch as fans now, like we are, and you're in the radio, and I'm just a fan and coach. But I love those first rounds because they're the most entertaining, they're high energy, hard hitting, and everybody's bringing their A game. And then, as we know, injuries come into play. The game gets a little slower as the playoffs go. But both those series were, I would say, even.
Bucky, thanks so much for spending an hour with us on Who Is It Wednesday. I truly appreciate it. Continued success in Laval, continued success in the workouts and your golf game. And we hope to have you again soon.
Thanks for having me, and all the best in years to come for you.
That is Kelly Buchberger here on the Wednesday edition of the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440. Let's get to the Con Man and a Sports Center update brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling Home. The no payments, no interest for 1 year on your furnace or AC unit. Have a warm fall at legacyheating.ca. Here's Connor Halley.
It's time for a Sports 1440 top of the hour update.
San Francisco 49ers and defenseman Nick Bosa agreeing to a 5-year, $170 million contract extension, including $122.5 guaranteed. The three-time Pro Bowler will now become the highest-paid player defensively in NFL history. Joe Burrow was a full participant in practice today out in Cincinnati. He'll be good to go for Week 1. Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp, on the other hand, he's been ruled out for Week 1 when they take on the Seattle Seahawks due to a hamstring injury. Kupp missed 8 games last season with injuries. The Toronto Maple Leafs assigned forward Noah Gregor to a PTO earlier today. Gregor posted 10 goals and 17 points in 57 games last season with the San Jose Sharks. Major League Baseball, the Jays in action down in the Bay, taking on the Athletics. Athletics leading 5-2 in the top of the 9th. Oh, that one looks like it's just wrapped up. The Athletics picking up the victory. Other finals, Cubbies over the Giants 8-2. Twins fall to the Guardians 2-1, and the Pirates get past the Brewers 5-4. A couple games going on right now. The Phillies leading the Padres 5-0 in the 6th. Also in the 6th, the Diamondbacks have a 10-5 lead over the Rockies. Later tonight, Red Sox take on the Rays. The Mariners are in Cincinnati. Yankees host the Tigers. Cards take on the Braves, and the Astros up against the Rangers. Coming up in hour number 3 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll be joined by former NHLer and current NHL Network analyst Mike Rupp.
Christensen Communities, the name in active adult living. Enjoy retirement living.
hopefully you have a good month, and that means be good for the kids. So if you have anyone that you like tonight, let us know. You can text me at 833-401-1440. And if we win, you'll be like, hey, I'm helping the kids. So that's great. Now, let's go around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's for a limited time only. Enjoy the Mighty McMuffin or Mighty McGriddle breakfast made with bacon, sausage, egg, and cheese on a McGriddle or a McMuffin, only at McDonald's. As we welcome in our regular Wednesday guest. Haven't spoke to him in a while, but we're happy to have him from the NHL Network, former Stanley Cup winner, former NHLer. Mike Rupp joins us. Rupper, welcome back to the show, my man. How you doing?
I'm good, Greg. Glad to be back. I just heard you mention Kelly Buchberger. I mean, that was an intimidating player when I broke into the league, man. Anybody that would wear that helmet that guy wore just made me think that some screws were loose, man. I'm like, what was that, a Windwell?
Yes.
Remember the Windwells or the Coopers or whatever they were?
Yeah.
When guys wore those, I was like, I'm like, are you choosing to wear that helmet? Like, and I'm like, this guy's old school, man. I don't want to mess with him, but he was an intimidating guy coming in as a young guy in this league for me.
Buddy, I was asking him about the helmet. He still got it. So, keeps it around. It's got a few stickers.
I mean,
yeah.
I wonder how many of those he's gone through in his lifetime. And we always talk about Sidney Crosby having that same jock strap since he was like in squirts or something. I mean, did Kelly use that same helmet for his entire career? Because it kind of looked like it.
Well, he did. That's what he said. He goes, had a few different stickers, a few paint jobs on it. But man, the Windwell was unbreakable. You couldn't break that thing.
Oh, I love it.
So, Mike, there's lots going on. Here we are. We're 2 weeks away from training camp. And, they're in Edmonton, all the players are here. We'll get to that in a second. But Edmonton and Vegas, you look at Toronto and Tampa Bay and Carolina. Do you have the Rangers? Where do you have the Rangers and Devils as far as, are they legit cup contenders? Are they knocking on the door? Are they in Tier B? Where do you have them?
Oh, that's a good one. When I'm thinking about this Rangers team, I sit there. I still think they are going to be a top tier team, but I ask myself, and we won't know until games are played. That won't be answered until then. But did they get better or worse in this off season? Is where they're at even just staying the same? Is that enough? I think that the Rangers are everybody knows. Everybody talks about it. If the young guys in Kako Capo or Lafreniere take a step, that's going to bode very well for them. I think they can take that next step as a franchise. I actually kind of think the Devils are set up to be a team that I can see handling the Eastern Conference. I can see them competing for the top record in the Eastern Conference. The one kicker for me with them, which was pretty good last year until it wasn't, was their goaltending. Yeah. So that's where this Connor Halley stuff gets me, because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I don't know what the market is out there for Halley. We know that in Winnipeg, they've got to get a return, right? They've got to, with some of these pieces they're moving out and have moved out, they've got to get return and return that makes them a good team now, but also planning for the future. But I think the market for Connor Halley, if a team can make a deal good enough right now, like the Devils, I don't think the Devils want him long-term necessarily, because he's going to command a lot and he's going to command term and dollars. But if you can get him right now, they've got a strike. They're a goalie removed from, I think, being a Stanley Cup contender. And that's crazy, because when you're dating back a little over a year and a half ago, you never would have thought that, I think, with this Devils squad. But I think they're actually a little bit closer right now than the Rangers are.
My one concern about New Jersey is the youth on the back end. And it is rare to win in crunch time with young defensemen, especially two. Now, Cale Makar is a little bit of an exception, but he had played in the playoffs. He had quite a few playoff games under his belt. New Jersey's really high in some of their young D-men, and I think they're going to be really good. But as a former player, Mike, how am I overblowing the lack of experience in some of their key positions on defense?
Put it this way: if I'm the opponent or I'm the opposing team's coach, I'm trying to exploit that. I mean, your forecheck game's got to be on point. Let's get on these guys. If there is a weakness, it is their inexperience on the back end. But the one thing I think that Lindy Ruff has done an incredible job there is, and I think Dougie Hamilton's a perfect example. I mean, we all know Dougie Hamilton, and he's a very polarizing player. Wherever he's been, it's been like he has his skill level, but he lacks X, Y, and Z, and he doesn't really have that second gear. Like, where's he at? They've embraced his kind of warts of his game, and they play him to his strength. Just go, get involved, be creative, and Dougie is. I think Luke Hughes is going to be. They're going to let the reins off him. He's going to be able to go. I think that they'll probably over the course of the year realize that they've got to get another veteran in there on the back end and have a couple insurance policies. But I would try to exploit it. I think the way the Devils play in that go in that transition game, it might bode really well for them, because it's almost like I feel like Colorado didn't necessarily win over the last few years. Like, they didn't necessarily defend very well. They had guys who were allowed to go offensively and get involved with their forwards. And then they kind of developed defending better. And now those defensemen, Devon Taves has been incredible. And they've learned that. I think that's a kind of the blueprint for the Devils. Let's play to our strengths. And along the way, we'll try to nip at some of our weaknesses and inexperience on the back end.
Mike Rupp joins us, Edmonton Sports Leader, TSN 1260, on Sports 1440. There's another $20, Rupper. Jeez, brutal.
Oh, you got to find
oh, yeah. It's $40 now for old JG. So that's not good whatsoever. You should have seen Connor Halley's reaction. He was pretty excited. He was fist pumping over here, which is outstanding. So old habits die hard, man. It's Sports 1440, of course. You can text us 833-401-1440. And Mike, so the Devils and what about Carolina? Because when I see Carolina, like, man, they might have the best defense score in the league. I think from 1 through 7, they probably got the best defense score. My concern with Carolina is it's repeat. I look at their forward group. They're good. I like Svechnikov. I like Aho. I don't love it. Like, they don't have like a real dominant guy. Now, some would say Vegas didn't, but I don't know. Like, there's something about Mark Stone, and Jack Eichel was an elite player in the postseason. Until Carolina gets a legit game breaker consistently, I don't think they can win. Am I wrong?
Oh man, they're almost that team that, like, I've wanted to win because they do everything right.
Fair.
But they just they're lacking like that one thing, like you're saying. And they thought and they tried to do that when they got Pacioretty before the Achilles injury, or they were in the talks for Timo Meier last year. They were in the talks for Vlad Tarasenko. Like, they're in the talks for these players, but the one thing that they have done an incredible job of is just continuing to be strong where they're strong. And just going back to Dougie Hamilton, you talk about a few years ago, they were a very good team then, and he signs that monster deal in New Jersey. They lose that whole very shrewd move by them, going and getting Tony DeAngelo, bringing him in. He was great. Then they can't kind of afford Tony. He goes to Philly. They go get Brent Burns, and now it's like their strength. They bring Tony DeAngelo back. Now they go get Dmitry Orlov. Like, I love what they're doing, but I agree with you. It's like their Achilles heel is when they need a big goal, they don't really have that guy that's going to do it, right? Like, they have great players. Sebastian Aho is an awesome player, and I almost consider him to be a little not similar in the way they play, but the way they are almost viewed. Like, we never judge Patrice Bergeron on his points because he's so good in other areas. Like, Sebastian Aho over the last 4 years, he leads the NHL in shorthanded goals. I think he's got 15. He's great on the PK. He's great on the power play. He does everything well, good on both sides of the puck. He can get north of 80 points, but I mean, if you have all the responsibilities he has, he's got a ton of value. But do they have that guy where things are just not going? We've had a period of playing in our own zone, and we're going to get one shot coming off our stick in the prime area. Do they have that guy to put the puck in the net? I don't know if they do. They control a lot of metrics of every game. As far as the analytics go, they play the way Rod wants them to play, Rod Brindamore, their head coach. But they're still kind of lacking that. So I think that they are going to be an elite team in the East. Just that's who they are. And that's who they've been.
Yeah.
But can Svechnikov be healthy? Can Svechnikov be a beast? Can those guys still develop and find another level? I guess we'll have to see.
Mike Rupp joins us on Sports 1440 around the NHL. Now let's get to the Pacific Division. It's a real deep division. It was the only division that had 4 100-point teams last year in Vegas, Edmonton, LA, and Seattle. Calgary and Vancouver, I think both teams, Calgary definitely was disappointing. A lot of people feel they'll improve with the coaching change and some other moves there. Vancouver, lots of people think they're on the way up. Do you think either one of them is good enough to knock one of those top 4 teams out of the postseason?
I don't. I know that's not really a great answer as far as getting some back and forth, but I just don't. I think that those teams that you mentioned that had the 100 points, I mean, I expect them all to be better this year. I expect them all to continue to grow. And, Edmonton's Edmonton. They're going to be an absolute force. I mean, Vegas, they're not going to fall back at all. They've done an incredible job after winning the Stanley Cup of keeping that team pretty much intact. I just think what Seattle's really accomplished there in their short time in this league, it's for real. And so I just think that there's more question marks for me. I mean, there's this, Vancouver's a tough one because they've got a lot of things in place, a lot of really good hockey players, but they just haven't been able to put it together. And although they have some great players, they lack some of the other parts of the lineup that they need. And in Calgary, I do think Calgary will be a better team this year, but I just don't think that any of those teams overhaul the teams that got in last year. The top teams in that division deserved everything they got, and I think they're all going to be stronger this year.
Mike Rupp joins us. I'm Jason Gregor. Mike, one last one for you. Give me your thoughts on, now obviously, early in your career, guys weren't coming to camp this early. We see in Edmonton, and I know we talked to Jordan Eberle yesterday from Seattle. Lots of their players are in already. Like, training camp doesn't start for 2 weeks now. And I know the players are in great shape now. Nobody comes to camp to get in shape. So it's not like they're here on these captain skates to get in shape. But what do you make of this? Do you think this is a new trend now? We're going to see league-wide, like lots of teams and lots of their players reporting 2 weeks before camp.
Yeah, it's funny because that stuff kind of went on before too, and over the years, maybe a little bit more so now, and it's gonna, like you said, head more in that direction. But peer pressure is a real thing, right? Like you gotta, most guys have their regimen when they want to come in. Most guys, I think, generally would like to come in a week before training camp. I mean, if you had to ask them, I mean, maybe some guys are different. They like to come in earlier, but once you get certain guys coming in, there's pressure for everybody to come in. You don't want to be the guy that isn't in there. And I remember the story. It was funny. It was when I was playing for the Coyotes. It was coming out of the lockout. And that's when Wayne and when Gretzky was the head coach, right? And we got a call in the summertime, and I got a call from Tyson Nash, was one of the the role playing leaders on that team, and he called around because I think in the CBA, at least at that time, they could not make you come in until a certain time, and he would call around, and I remember he called me and he goes, "Hey, Rupper, we're trying to, it's all voluntarily coming in early. Like, they can't make us come in, but Wayne wanted me to pass on the message to the boys that it's highly, highly recommended." I'm like, all right, I'll be there. So I think that's kind of almost what it is with your peers as well. Like, you see players, the leaders lead, and they get in there and do it. And you better be sure to follow, or it might be a long season for you. So I think that's just the way it's going to be from now on.
Rupper, we're happy to have you back on the show. We look forward to you joining us so we can see your pretty face over the YouTube connection next week. So we appreciate it. But great insight as always, and we'll chat with you next Wednesday.
Looking forward to it. Take care, buddy.
That is Mike Rupp from the NHL Network, and he will join us every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. It's a Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca. You can text us on our text line, 833-401-1440. That's our Jiffy Lube inbox. Stop in right now for a Pennzoil Platinum full synthetic oil change and receive $20 digital gift certificate to one of over 30 local merchants. Book your appointment at jiffylubeservice.ca. Jason Gregor alongside Connor Halley. We'll take a quick break. We got to get your, we got lots of text in. Some of you with some really good additions. So we'll get to our Play Alberta pick of the day coming up. We have 5 questions. Also, Steve McIntyre is going to join us at 5:20. Mark Spector will be by and more on a busy Wednesday edition of the Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on YouTube on Oilers Nation YouTube channel.
There's 2 seasons in Alberta, winter and
about Billy Joe and Bobby Sue. 2 young lovers with nothing better to do than sit around the house, get high and watch a tube.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Hey, Gregor, what happens to the money in the 1260 jar? Oh, that's a good question. It goes to a few different things, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think Connor Halley might get to decide what happens to it. I think that's probably fair, eh, Con Man?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of options. We could give it to charity, or we could be selfish and go out for dinner, order some food in.
Oof. Well, Cons loves the ordering the food in.
I do. You know what? Stayed out of the food court today.
Ooh, so you made it one day.
One day.
One day. We'll see how long Cons can go without having to go to the food court. It's going to be a challenge. Does it go longer than Strutty used to? Like Strutty, I think his record was 22 days before he needed it. Actually, no, maybe it was 19 before he needed a day off. We'll see how it goes. So now we are going to play our little Play Alberta picks of the day. It's we'll make a parlay with 3 picks. And you know what? We always take some thoughts from the audience and the listeners to say, hey, this is what we like. This is what they're thinking. Some of you are really like it. So this is an interesting one. Hey, boys, what about taking the Reds over Seattle? As a Jays fan, gives me hope. And then take 2 favorites. Not bad. That's a tough loss today for the Blue Jays against Oakland. Now, they are 5-2. If you go 5-2 every 7 games, you're going to have a good chance down the stretch here to make the playoffs. It's just when you lose to Oakland, and somebody's got to lose to them sometimes. I understand it, but man, that is a tough one, Cons. That was a tough loss.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, those are the games you just kind of assume you'll find a way to get it done, even when you're down a run or two. Like the Jays will get back into it, but that hasn't really been the case too often this year. Where you're overly confident that the bats will show up. They had a nice 7th inning last night, scored 6 runs. That was terrific, but. Yeah, that certainly is a tough one heading into your next series now. And every game's crucial, Gregor. This race is so tight. Every game matters.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And speaking of games that mattered, I don't know if any of you were up early enough this morning to watch Canada-Slovenia at the FIBA World Cup of Basketball. What a game. Canada's into the semifinals, man. And, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no one should be surprised. What did he finish 4th or 5th in NBA scoring last year? But you just look at the elite young talent on the Canadian men's basketball team right now. It is phenomenal, and I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of where it's going to go from here, and see just what's possibly next for them. Like next summer, I know people are like, hey, Wiggins isn't on the team, Murray isn't on the team. My question, like Murray, I understand why he's not on the team, right? I get it, Cons.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, so Wiggins plays all year. He really hasn't played with the team a lot for the last few years. I know he's a good player, but would you bring him in for the Olympics if he hadn't been there at any other time?
I mean, he had a 23-game absence due to personal reasons this year, 51 days away from the team. And so there were some things going on in his life, and there was reports. I don't think we necessarily need to get into it because I can't confirm that they were true or not. I think for the Olympics, I would look at it. I mean, especially a guy who now has that NBA championship on his resume. He won it with the Warriors, I know, but he was great in the finals. He had some really big performances. So personally, I want to load up the team as best as you can with the best skill, and I would bring him on. I know the track record isn't necessarily great with Andrew Wiggins in the national program, but if he's going to be fully committed to this team and going to it, then I would do it. I'd make the exception for Andrew Wiggins. Jamal obviously had some injuries and went on an extended championship run this past spring. So, it's tough for him to be there. But yeah, if you can add those 2 players in, I think I go for it. How about you?
I guess I would have to have the conversation and know everything to understand, because I think as a player, obviously he's one of the best Canadian players around. But I'd want to know, is he 100% fully committed to the program? Because it's not like it's just this last year. I know he missed some games for personal reasons, but he's never really been committed to the national program for a long time. Now there's, various reasons why, but to me, that would just be one that I would look at and consider. So we'll see. So our first Play Alberta pick'em today. And thanks to JR, we are going to go with the upset, Cons.
Okay.
We'll go the Reds over Seattle. I know it's a little bit of an upset, but hey, you got, you know what? Hey, anything can happen. Oakland just won. I imagine if we would have bet on that one. So, and then we are going to take the Dodgers over the Marlins and Tampa over Boston. So 2 favorites. in an underdog.
Just going to try to put that together. So we had the Dodgers
over Miami
and
Tampa over Boston. And the Reds in an upset.
And this is a $20 bet?
Yeah. We got it all. We'll put it in.
That would win $132.
Oh, geez. Well, there you go. Who knew?
Straight to charity, right?
Who knew? So that's fantastic. I like it. So there you go. And yeah, everything we win by the end of the month, and it's only $20. So if we have a really good day, we don't then suddenly bet harder the next day. We're just sticking with $20 every day from playalberta.ca. And everything we win at the end of the month goes to charity. And this month it is for Kids Sport. So that's why we'll get your interaction. So if you have anything tomorrow, big NFL, maybe we'll have some prop bets on that NFL game. With Kelsey out, there's some intriguing numbers to look at. So we'll get to that. Hey, guys, obviously Murray's hurt, so that doesn't count. And he's being committed in the past. Oh, yeah, that's why I didn't mention Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray's a no-brainer. He's on the team, right? Jamal Murray had a really long season. That's why he's out. I totally understand it. Jokic isn't playing for his country either, right? I get it, why he's not there. Wiggins was the one who hasn't been there for a long, long time. Jamal Murray has before. So, no, I think Jamal Murray's there. And if Wiggins, in conversations with the coach and the other players, they're like, hey, this guy's committed, then yes, 100% he's there, because there's no question in my mind that he's one of the top players for Canada. I don't think anybody can debate that, right? He's not the best player, right? And I think Murray and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are going to get that honor moving forward. But Wiggins can still help their team. I don't think there's any question about that. So it should be a very interesting time for sure. Now we got lots of text at 833-401-1440. You can email us on our Jiffy Lube inbox, Gregor at sports1440.ca. Lots more text flying. Hey, guys, excellent interview with Bucky. Glad you guys are back from Oliver Steve. Hey, boys, is there an announcement today at the Oilers jersey for the Heritage Classic? Well, I think it happened about an hour ago. Connor McDavid was there. I was talking to Kelly Buchberger, so I haven't seen it on there. I know I can tell you this for a fact, that the Oilers organization would love nothing more than to release the jerseys. But this is an NHL event, so they control the timeline on that. That's just how it works. That's something I learned this summer, to be honest. You know what? It's, the Oilers get compensated because it's a home game. But obviously it'll be a home game with way more fans. So they get a percentage of based on what their average would be. And then the rest is all NHL money. And so that's why, that goes into the big pot. And so that does make sense from a league perspective why you would do that. So even if you have Chicago, who's in their lots, if it's making more money for the league, well, that benefits all the teams. Although I do think it's nice to have other teams involved. I understand the draw of Chicago, major market, hockey hotbed. I understand it. But ideally, I think if you can get more of them involved, that's even better.
Gregor, McDavid spoke down at Commonwealth, and in the background, you can kind of see the logo they're going with. You see the Edmonton Mercury's influence in this one.
But do you have the logo? Do you have the whole jersey?
Not the whole jersey, but the logo, right? Okay. So you can tell the influence, what they're going for. I guess you could use your imagination from there, but yeah, it looks like a pretty cool logo.
Oh, yeah. I think it's, you know what? And talking to the players, now they did this in Winnipeg a few years ago, some of their core guys, right? But was that 2017? I think it was 2017, right? Mark Letestu scored a few goals that game. That was when it was delayed, and Joey Moss was in the dressing room telling stories to keep the guys loose because the sun was so low that they had to delay the game a little bit to get it in. And now you have it at home, at Commonwealth. The weather, we assume, shouldn't be a factor. Like, I don't see this being a repeat of 2003 when you showed up to the game. You're wearing insulated coveralls. You're wearing long underwear. You're probably wearing your big Sorels, right? You got your huge mitts. You got everything on. I have no doubt in my mind that you were probably doing that. I don't think it's going to be that cold this time around, which is great. That's good news.
So. 2016, Gregor.
2016 is that? It was 2016, 17 season.
Yeah. So Letestu, Nurse, and Cassian with the goals.
Yeah. Well, Letestu had 2, did he not?
From From where I see, just the one.
Because didn't they win 4-3? Maybe he scored in the shootout. Maybe that's what it was. Or was it a 3-2 game?
3-0.
3-0? Oh, okay. Totally thinking a different game then.
McDavid had an assist. Nugent an assist. Yeah, 2-point game for Cassian.
Oof. Ducks are hoping his PTO that happens again. For sure.
What are the chances he lands there?
Decent. Like Zach Cassian, he definitely didn't look engaged for lots of last season. So, you look at Anaheim, there's lots of openings on that team. So I think he can skate. Like, he didn't just lose his ability. His willingness, maybe. His consistency wasn't there last year. So, could he earn himself a league minimum contract? Yeah, I don't think it would be that difficult. Hey, Greg, did you guys happen to listen to the Yakupov interview with John Scott yet? What are your thoughts? Yeah, you know what? I heard it. You know what? He talked, he had something. He loved Darcy Hordichuk, and he felt like Darcy Hordichuk was huge for him. He mentioned how he felt like he just didn't learn much. And that's his impression, and that's his memory of what happened. And that's 11 years ago. Isn't that crazy? It's 11 years ago Yakupov was here. And, I guess it was 10, because he talked about, he had his first year and he had a decent year with Kruger, and then they brought in Dallas Eakins, and he just didn't connect with Dallas Eakins. There's, I'd like to hear Eakins' side of that conversation. What did he get out of it? Right? I've talked to Dallas before, and, he's admitted he learned a lot his second time around as a head coach, like anybody would as an NHL head coach. But, I'm not stunned by Yakupov's comments. Like, you just look at how the team played that year. It was not a banner year. I think anybody watching, right? Like, they're coming in already. Everybody's just texting one word. What word do you think they're texting, Connor Halley, right now? Any of our listeners can guess. What word do you think they're texting? Swarm, of course. You mentioned that era, and that's the word that comes out, right? So, I'm not completely shocked by it. It's been long enough that I think you probably have a better chance of getting the player's honest interpretation of what they felt at the time. Right? Because remember, there's always two sides to a story. Right? And hey, was Yakupov receptive? I don't know. We'd have to ask Dallas Eakins. Maybe he would want to comment on it. Who knows? But I'm not. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, that seems completely unrealistic. Right? Hey, Greg's, I'm absolutely choked. There's no alumni game at this year's Heritage Classic. Doesn't feel like the money spent is going to be worth it from Lance. Well, Lance, there actually is an alumni game. It just hasn't been announced yet officially. But I've been told that there will be an alumni game, and expect kind of that era of 1997 and beyond. You're not going to have many guys from the 80s. Like, they're in their mid 60s, man. Like, a lot of them don't want to do it, right? They want younger guys to have an opportunity. And honestly, when you look at the fan base, think of the fans, the majority that are going to be there. I think their generation is the Ryan Smiths and the Doug Waits and the Bill Guerins and the Alish Hemskys and the Sean Horkoffs. And, then you go to Jason Smith and Steve Stais and those type of guys. I think, honestly, that's who they're looking at having. And trust me, it's the alumni players. Like, it's a real honor to get the invite to play in that game. But my understanding, Lance, is there is going to be one. And, it'll be interesting. Will Jerome McGinley? I don't see why he wouldn't. He's part of the Flames organization. Why could he lace him up? That's a pretty big draw from a Calgary perspective, and even from an Edmonton fan perspective, to watch McGinley from St. Albert. Everybody remembers his contributions to Team Canada in 2002. You had Jerome McGinley headlining the Calgary team. That's a pretty big draw. So my understanding is, yes, there is going to be one, Lance. It just it hasn't been announced yet. And here we are, September 6th. That game is 7, 8 weeks away? 7. So, yeah, you'd hope that, you'd like to have a little bit more excitement, but I'll tell you this. Once the announcement comes, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 7, people are going to get fired up. So I was told they're working on it. Now, maybe it's hit a snafu, and maybe I'll be honest, for the last week, I was focused on lots of other things. So maybe it's changed. But when I had a conversation 10 days ago, the whole plan was to have one. And they were putting out invites to players. And there was lots of guys who wanted to play. Why wouldn't you do it? Unless the NHL has decided they don't want it. But why not? It just adds, as Lance said, it adds to the excitement. You get the young games in. Who doesn't like nostalgia? We love nostalgia. Right? Connor gets teary-eyed every time the powder blue comes out. Right? It's nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. So there you go. Hey, Greg's, I thought I heard there was no game. Well, I'll check it out. It's during the press conference. Well, there you go. Okay. So they changed their mind. Well, that's disappointing then. We didn't hear the press conference. We were talking to Kelly Buchberger live. Well, that's disappointing. I'd like to know the reasoning. We'll have to listen to the press conference. Did they give a reason why? Why wouldn't you? And unless it's something to do with, I don't know, insurance maybe. Maybe it's something to do with the ice availability or whatever else. It's organizing. Sure, there's a cost to it, no question. But that does, that puts a damper on it. I could see your frustration, Lance. I totally get it. Because fans, why wouldn't you like to get 2 for 1? Watch a few games, sit back. You know the game doesn't mean anything. It's just fun to see. It's fun to see. So I'm sure it has to do with the ice. It's late October. That's probably the main reason why they're not doing it. Now, here's the question I would ask for fans. If they played the alumni game the night before, would you go? And could that be included in your ticket? Obviously it's not going to happen now, but I would assume people would commit, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe say, you know what, man, I'm not going to go watch an alumni game. I'll go when the alumni game's on before, but I don't want to go the night before. I'd be curious. If you have tickets, would you go Friday to an alumni, or maybe the alumni game's the day after? I don't, probably can't do it the day after, but I'm just curious if people would go. And I think then the NHL would be like, well, we don't want to put the game on if we don't think people are going to show up. So not great. We'll come back with 5 questions next. You're listening to Sports 1440, streaming online, sports1440.ca, and live on YouTube on the Oilers Nation YouTube channel.
There's 2 seasons in Alberta: winter
Brought to you by Papa John's. Try their new butter chicken pizza made with velvety, tangy sweet sauce topped with juicy grilled chicken, green peppers, and onions. A large butter chicken pizza for $19.99 for a limited time only at papajohns.ca.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Yes.
We continue on Wednesday afternoon. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you, coming to you live from the eWell Studios for Sports 1440, EWEL.ca for all your electrical needs. It is time now for
Huge, Nurse, and Draisaitl who've worn the A in the past. If you were to limit it to two, who would be the odd man out?
Ooh. Well, I would probably go with Nugent Hopkins simply because I don't know if I want three forwards in the captain group. I just think that, you want kind of all your positions represented a little bit. So that's probably my easiest answer as to why. It's a good question. It's not going to happen. I thought you were going to say, are they going to add a fourth one? But yeah, I guess if I had to pick one, that would be my easy reasoning why.
That would have been a good one too, actually. I was going to say the same thing just because I don't think you'd rattle him too much. I think you're going to get the same leadership from him, whether he's got the letter or not.
Wow, I don't know. I think there's really no reason to do it. So
Yeah.
no, if you did it, I think it could be a tough pill. I've talked to players that have had it happen to them. It's not ideal.
If you were adding an A, who would it go to?
I'll go Zach Hyman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just because of his consistent dogged work ethic.
That popped into my head too. I thought maybe Matthias Ekholm, another year with the guys. Maybe that might be one that we could look at. But yeah, let us know with the inbox 1-833-401-1440. A question number 3 for you, Gregor. We're talking fantasy football continuously here on the station, on the shows. Yesterday, I asked you about players you're avoiding. Who is one player you think is due for a breakout year?
You know what? That's a really good question. We were having lots of discussions about that from different people. And, Cooper Kupp obviously was the one guy that I was shying. I said, there's no chance I'm drafting him. And unfortunately for people who have him, he's already been ruled out for week 1 and might be out even longer than that. So we'll kind of have to see. But breakout year. Like, it's probably too lame to go with a rookie because obviously anything they do would be considered a breakout year, right? So I'm going to go Breece Hall.
I like that one.
I think the Jets and their offense is, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a pretty big bounce back season.
Now,
lots of people are high on him.
Dalvin Cook was with Madison last year. Now he's with Breece Hall. I think given the opportunity, he was a pretty good player when he got the chances. So I'm going to go with Madison. Don't know if he can hold up for an entire year. It's a tough, brutal position, but Madison's one guy I've kind of been targeting late rounds. Seems like people are sleeping on him. Question number 4. We've got Steve McIntyre coming up on the show in about 30 minutes time, give or take. One of the toughest guys I've ever seen. If you could have 2 NHL enforcers drop the glove, almost like a dream fantasy fight, kind of a morbid thing, who would you have going at it?
That is morbid, man. I'm going to go Dave Brown and Bob Probert.
I like it. I'm going to go. I always liked Chris Simon and the late, great Dave Semenko.
Oof.
There's probably some good ones out there, though.
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me? There's lots of. And the funny thing is, though, if you ask those guys, now there is always a few guys, that like Colton Orr was one of the players who really he liked to fight. But you talk to George Larac and you talk to a lot of other guys, it was not something that they were really like, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait for this to happen. Right? That was not something that they got up for. But Colton Orr was one of those guys who was just like, hey, are we going to go? Are we going to have a Tilly? I'm in. Like he quite liked it. So, he hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like Colton Orr and Joey Kosher, when it came to guys who weren't huge in the heavyweight, like they were tough, but I'm talking like they weren't the 6'4" behemoths. They're big and strong, but both had a reputation of having heavy hands. And so from a real terrible angle to say, hey, I'd like to see that. Cause you know what? Hockey fights, it's interesting. They never seem to bother me as much of a street fight because in a hockey fight, I always felt like, well, you know what, if a guy gets knocked down, well, then the refs just come in and guys stop, right? On the street, it's not that way. So always, for some reason, I felt it was safer, right? It was a little bit more controlled, shall we say? And it is obviously more controlled. Now, I guess if you're going back to a line brawl, somebody might argue with you and say, hey, wait a sec, I don't think it's that safe. So a little bit different, but that's a unique question, man. The text line is filling up with suggestions over that because there's lots of people who had different opinions on who they'd like to see in that one. No question. Hey guys, Wensick and Tutu. Now that is two different generations, John. I like that. Yeah, you gotta go like Wensick in Boston, man, was not overly big, but he was tough. And Jordan Tutu, the Tutu train, gosh, you didn't want to be on the tracks. And he could fight and he was strong, but man, like he was almost more dangerous as a hitter because he was such a strong, powerful skater and he was put together. Like when he hit you and it was hard and it was not necessarily a boatload of fun by any stretch of the imagination. I never got hit by him, but I'm just going to guess, having talked to people and seeing the end results, not ideal.
Tutu train. Those World Juniors, when he really got onto the national scene, oh my gosh, he was something.
We'll go back and look at some of the highlight reels from his tape in Nashville.
Oh yeah,
and the big hits he had.
Let's get him back on the show.
Yeah, we should have to.
Last year. Yeah, we make the call.
Yeah.
Question number 5. Today is International Fight Procrastination Day. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a procrastinator are you?
On a level of like 1 to 10, I'd probably say I'm like a 4. I'm not if I got something to do and I know I need it done, majority of the times I'll do it. Now, cutting the lawn, I might stretch it out a day or two here or there, but for the most part, I don't like to go to bed knowing I have to do something. Right? Like it's not now, I'm not talking about a meeting or anything like that you can only do the next day, but if it's something that I can get done today, I prefer to get it done. Otherwise, then I think about it and I don't like it. So now like I said, it's not perfect. There's certain things, but I'd probably say a 4. You?
Probably put myself a little bit higher. Like I always say, why do tomorrow what you can do today? But for a guy who says that, I don't really follow it that often. Like I put myself like you say, like if it's something that's not that important, I'll put it off. Like, okay, empty the dishwasher. You know what? I can do that when I get home. I don't have to do it right this second. But yeah, probably about around a 6. Something I'm trying to combat every day. But yeah, it's gotten the better of me a few times in life.
Hey guys, what about this for a goalie fight? Mike Smith, Ray Emery, rest in peace, from Dan. And Ray Emery, he liked to fight. Remember he fought Andrew Peters, like he's smiling. He enjoyed it. Mike Smith didn't seem to mind it either, right? Pretty big guy, 6'3", had good range. Oof. Something about a goalie fight. It just, because it's so unexpected, right? It's almost like if Connor McDavid, now Oilers fans would probably be fearful a little bit, unless he won and there was no injury, right? Like, Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel dropping the mitts at center ice. Or like, remember when Iginla and LeCavalier went? Because trying to think now, Jamie Benn was a 40-goal scorer. He fought quite a few times, but when I think of the playoffs and I think of Iginla and LeCavalier, and which happened in 2004, has there been a playoff tilt amongst two superstars like that since? Now that was in the Stanley Cup final too, so that's what made it even better. But yeah, you don't see those very often, Cons. So it would be fun to see. But procrastination. We got a lot of texts coming in on that one. Hey guys, I was going to text you yesterday, but I didn't get it done till today. That's my level of procrastination. It's a good one, Brian. That's strong commitment to procrastination. But you know what? You knew we'd be here.
Yeah.
So I get it. I understand. And think about it. Had you texted us yesterday, that tweet wouldn't have been nearly as funny. So in essence, you helped yourself by procrastinating. I don't necessarily recommend it all the time, but in this case, it worked out. Now, let's get to Connor Halley and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Edmonton Kubota. They're excited to be back on air with Sports Talk 1440. And right now, all of their compact BX-B tractors in stock are on sale with 0% financing for 84 months. Shop online at EdmontonKubota.com. Here's Connor Halley.
portions of this hour brought to you by Roger Weird and his team at Weird, Pearson, Akel and Associates Private Wealth Management, helping business owners and professionals build, protect, and enjoy their wealth. Earn more now and call Roger and his team at 780-988-4119.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
In your dark eye. Dawnlight smile.
Rolling through a lovely Wednesday afternoon. How are you? Welcome back to the Gregor Show on Sports 1440. Day 2 for us. Fewer little ghosts in the studio, which is nice. There's still the camera ghosts that show up on YouTube every now and then, but we'll have it figured out soon. 100%. It's better today, but it's still annoying, especially for Declan and Tyler, the guys who have to fix it all the time. So Cons and I just sit here like the lazy kings and do nothing.
I get in the way.
They fix it.
Like I'm a problem when that happens. So.
So, yeah, we'll get it fixed. Thanks for everybody who's listening on the radio, online, watching on Oilers Nation YouTube. We appreciate it. The Gregor Show is always presented by PlayAlberta.ca, where all the revenues stay right here in the province. Alberta's only online regulated gambling website, PlayAlberta.ca. And if you do play, stay within your limits. Use your GameSense, gamesense.ab.ca. And it's been a busy show. Connor McDavid did speak while we were interviewing Kelly Buchberger. We'll get to some of his thoughts right now as we get to the Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. They're also celebrating their 50th anniversary and they're hiring. Go to Indeed.com, look up GS Construction. If you want to work for a great company, great benefits, GS Construction. As we welcome in from Sportsnet, Mark Spector. Spec, how you doing?
Hey, there you are, Jason. Doing very well. How you doing?
Buddy, I'm good. I like the shirt, looking good. Well, I guess let's start the Heritage Classic. You know, they had a press conference today. They still didn't unveil the jerseys. Like, man, like they're really kind of slow rolling this a little bit.
Yeah, this is how the NHL works. It today's press conference was a reminder that, hey, remember, there's a game here. If you want to get tickets, you better hurry. And then they'll have another event coming out where they can say, do the uniforms, and there'll be less tickets available, but still some, and that'll be a chance to sell some more, right? And then they'll probably run something else out and sell the last few. So listen, buddy, these guys put 3 of these games on every year. They know how to pitch them.
Yeah, no, it's fair. People are, it's September now. They're still 2 weeks from training camp. They're like, give me something. And I get it. They took away the alumni game, unfortunately. For them. I know the Oilers organization really wanted. I know the players. I talked to some alumni players. Like they were fired up to they were hoping to get the invite because, that's like a big honor if you could have got the invite for that. But, the NHL now.
Are the big alumni guys getting too old for that game, Jay, or what?
Well, the big guys were, but I think like the Ryan Smith, Doug Waite era, Jason Smith, Steve Stales, that type of guys. And even go into, if you want to go into even the 10 years ago type of players, right? Like Struddy, if they asked him, you don't think he'd play?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I suppose you could play against the Flames teams that would have like Freddie Brathwaite and
Jerome
Chris
McGinley,
Dingman and guys like that. Yeah. Sure.
Maybe get Mika Kiprusoff and Jerome McGinley, Robin Regeer, like that kind of era, right? I think it would be a lot of fun.
Well, if you're inviting Robin Regeer, you better tell Ales Hemsky he's coming.
Hey, you know what? Give Hemsky credit, man. And I talked to Robin about it a lot.
I do give him credit.
And because he said, man, like he never shied away at all. He played hard.
He kept going down Regeer's wing, and Regeer punished Hemsky, and Hemsky kept going back. My hat's off to Alish, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah. No, it was great. Now, Connor McDavid spoke. A lot of it was about the Heritage Classic, but, they have these captain skates here. Like, do you sense and then this might be an odd question, but is it too early to be this business, or is this a good thing to be this business-like approach early on?
Well, what McDavid has said to me a couple of weeks ago, he says, we need to guys show up in shape, Jason. It's not the old days where you come to captain shape skates and you're still not quite ready to play. These guys are, they just came, most of them came out of Gary Roberts' camp. They're so fit right now. So he basically said, let's get something out of these skates. Let's get more organized. He talked to the coaches that are running the practices and said, let's do something that's going to help us. Let's not just go out there and skate around in circles and do the horseshoe here. So, and that's the Connor McDavid, I think, Jason, that we both know and that the fans know, right? If he's going to strap it on and come out here and skate for 2 weeks, well, let's get something out of it. Let's do something. So I saw some viz from practice this morning, and they were, it looked like a regular midseason practice. They're doing all the drills and all the guys are there. And I guess my question would be to you, when it really matters here in April, will we look back to these captain skates and say, oh boy, that made the difference? I doubt it, but I guess if you're going to be on the ice, you must be getting something done, right?
Well, when people talk about the word culture and when they talk about expectations, I think it's painfully obvious to anybody who's watched the Oilers the last few years what their biggest weakness was. I think we all know what it is, right? They defensively, and they just kind of had that ability to give up the easy goal too often. And they eliminate that. And the funny thing is, even with all that in mind, they still have the second most wins since Jay Woodcroft arrived as head coach. The Oilers are a really good team. And so I expect them to do quite well this regular season. And I'm fascinated to see what kind of moves Ken Holland makes at the trade deadline, because make no mistake, Spec, he knows he's in his window to win. We all know the first round pick is up for grabs. Great. It's probably going to be like a 25th and later type of pick, but what other deals potentially could be there? Because it's not I know people say cup or bust. I don't really agree with that. I just think it's cup or frustration for this team, and that's fair. But you could say that about Toronto. I think you could say that about Carolina. Carolina to me is like the Oilers of the East a little bit, although the Oilers have more talent, at least high-end offensive talent, not defensively. But, and there's other teams that are in that category where it's not just bust, but it'll be frustration. And I'm really fascinated to see if they can eliminate that consistently, what has been their biggest weakness, really, in the era of this team.
Well, I said to Connor McDavid this afternoon, I said, when the season ends, you guys always say it's too soon to talk about why we lost. And then when we see you again in September, you're always focused on the coming season. So I said, take us back. Did you figure out over the summer what it was that really cost you against Vegas? And the first thing he went to, he said, there's lots of little mistakes that were made, but he said in game 5, we're in Vegas. We're up by 1 with 5 minutes to play in the second. And by the time the third period starts, we're down by 2, So he goes where we all go, right? It's keeping the puck out of the net. Listen, I was the guy that wrote, oh my goodness, how many years ago did they lose to the Chicago Blackhawks? That until the leaders are focused defensively and playing proper defensive hockey, none of the followers will be. Well, the leaders are there now. Connor McDavid isn't talking about we lost because we didn't score enough goals. He's talking about we didn't succeed because we made mistakes defensively. So they're there, and they're going to hold the rest of this team to account. I wouldn't at all be surprised to see McDavid and Draisaitl's numbers or production go down just a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. But if it does, it'll come with goals against going down even more. And I think that's the key for this team to win.
Yeah, I look at the Oilers, they could reduce 20 goals for and still be the top scoring team in the NHL. It's actually 24. Right. So they've got goals to lose, and if they could eliminate 20 goals against, well, then now you're hovering around to 10th or 11th, which is where Vegas was in the regular season last year. And then and then lots of other things like Aiden Hill comes out of nowhere. Good for him, but not many people had Aiden Hill being a .932 goaltender in the playoffs when he never played a playoff game before. But that's what's great about the postseason. There's always unpredictability. The goaltending position in Edmonton, we know who the two goalies are going to be, barring injury. It's Campbell and Skinner. What's your sense on Campbell's ability to be a consistent, reliable goalie this year?
Well, let me take it just a little bit of a different place. What I never get, Jason, is what happened in Edmonton last year. They split, Skinner played more games than Campbell played. He was the number one goalie. We get that. But Campbell played. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and it was a long time ago, but he played 30% of the games, let's say. Then the playoffs start, and Skinner plays every minute of every game. Like, I don't get how hockey teams and hockey coaches use one system all season and then go to a brand new system in the playoffs. Skinner has proved to us last year that he was not ready, right? He was not ready to play every minute in the playoffs. His game waned as the playoffs went on. His save percentage started with 8. You cannot win when your goalie's save percentage starts with 8. I don't blame the goaltender as much as I blame, I guess, Jay Woodcroft, frankly, for not saying, this kid never played this many games in a row all season and kept his game together. Why do I think it's going to happen in the postseason? Right? He needed to get spelled off by Campbell. The offshoot of that is, Jay, Campbell's got to be good enough that when he gets his turn, they still win hockey games. Right? Campbell has to hold up his end here. He's a $5 million goalie who had an awful season last year. This is a career year for Jack Campbell. And I'm not telling any stories out of school here. This is the year we find out if Jack Campbell's a real goalie or a bad signing. And this is the year we're going to know. When this season's over, I don't want to hear any stories. It's like golf, Jay, right? There's no room on the scorecard for a story here. Either the playoffs start and Jack Campbell can play some games and win them. And if he can't, buy him out and move on.
Yeah, or try to Cal Peterson him, right? And just move him out.
Whatever you do something. Yeah, but if he can't play this year, he can't play. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Oh, especially at $5 million. You couldn't. That would be insanity to bring him back. I'm hearing some whispers that the Oilers are looking. Not a guarantee, but they're looking. There's still some unsigned players out there that I think Edmonton wants more competition. In their bottom 6, and specifically maybe even in their 4th line, right? Like, Brandon Sutter, Sam Gagner are going to come in, and maybe they'll be the answer. They don't know. And then Raphael Lavoie and Lane Peterson have yet to prove themselves as NHL players. Like, would you be surprised if between now and the start of training camp, they signed another player, another forward for potentially a league minimum?
No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. You got anybody in mind? Is there a 4th line center fishing around out there that's still open that you like?
That's the problem. Not really, right? Like, the one player that I'm interested in, Spec, is Maxime Comtois. Right? Like, Maxime Comtois is the one, like, he's 6'2", he's 210 pounds, he skates. Yep. Now, I've told that, that if there's a concern, it's that the engine doesn't rev high all the time. Now, players, you know what? You go through a whole summer and no one's signing you. Like his last contract, he got the big raise to $2.3 million. He was probably pretty happy. And then the next 2 years, it didn't work out. Like sometimes we've seen guys that you've kind of got to be, put on notice a little bit. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a sec. Like, oh my goodness, man. Like, if I don't turn this around, I might be out of the league. Right? Yeah. And so, I don't know, but he's now it'd be easier to just put him on a PTO. I totally understand it. Right. But maybe that's all it is. But he's an interesting player. Now, the problem is he's more of a left winger, and they've already got Kane, and they've already got Nugent Hopkins, and they've already got Fogle, and they've already got Holloway. Like, they got Janmark. Like, I think they have enough left wingers. That's why it might not fit. But he's an intriguing name for me.
He's a guy that you have to be the team that gets him at the right time. Okay. Yes. Anaheim picked him. He's the 1st-round pick, right? Anaheim picked him. He was supposed to be a top 6 productive player. I covered this World Junior. I do believe he was the captain of Canada's junior team, if I'm not mistaken. He was a high-end offensive player coming in the league. His career started, he's not a high-end offensive player. He's a bottom 6 player, Jason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does Max Comtois see himself as a bottom 6 player?
Yeah,
I don't want him if he still thinks he's a top 6 player. I want to be the team that gets him when he realizes what he is. I don't know where his head's at right now. I'll tell you this. What the Oilers, the one spot the Edmonton Oilers need, they need to get a 4th line center that can push Derek Ryan to the right side. That guy on every Stanley Cup team I've covered, Jason, is not a young guy like Comtois. He's an older veteran, good face-off man. a guy that's been around, and he's basically a centerman version of Janmark, right? He's John Madden. He's the old D Carbonell, right?
Yeah.
He's one of
He's
those
more
guys.
of a trade deadline acquisition is what you're saying. Because Zach Aston Reese now, he's not the veteran player, but Zach Aston Reese in limited minutes had 10 goals last year, right? Like you're looking for somebody that can play a role for your team, kill some penalties, chip in a little bit. Like I think there's some options out there if the Oilers are intrigued to do it.
You know what else, Jay? What you got to remember here, if you don't have, they're not in LTIR anymore, so they don't have to solve every one of their problems in the summer, right?
Yeah,
they can take that vacancy into the season. They can play Ryan at fourth line center, maybe a little more than they want to. Maybe they give Sutter a shot. Maybe they give Gagne a shot. They figure it out. And if we get to February, and now you can look around, you can find that fourth line center who's on an expiring contract, and you get him for a fourth round pick, right? That's probably what Ken Holland will end up doing. I don't see the guy out there right now. Maybe they find him. I don't see a trade, but again, they're not in LTIR anymore. This is a different team now. Ken Holland can do things at the deadline. I know he's capped out. I get all that, but he can do things at the deadline that he couldn't do when this club was in LTIR.
Yeah, barring a serious injury during the season, they're going to be able to accrue cap space for the first time in 3-4 years. So that's a benefit for sure.
Yeah.
Spec, good chat with you, my man. We will chat with you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Yeah. All right.
It's a Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you live in the eWell studio here in West Edmonton Mall for Sports 1440. When we return, Big Mac, Steve McIntyre, will join us on the Wednesday edition of the Jason Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Hey world, get ready.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
All we need is a drama for people who only need a beat, yeah.
Continuing on Wednesday afternoon, the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 is always brought to you by our title sponsor, PlayAlberta.ca, where you can get in the game. Bet responsibly, PlayAlberta.ca. And bottom of 3, Seattle up 2-1 on Cincy. Not a great start. Not a great start. See what happens. See what happens. Our Play Alberta picks of the day, and if we win, all the proceeds at the end of the month, everything goes to a charity. This month, it's helping out kids sports. So we'll always get your thoughts. So think about it today, and be sure to text in tomorrow in the first hour of the show, and we'll do some game prop bets in the NFL. Who you like? We'll get to that. All right, we are going to get to the oil report brought to you by Volvo of Edmonton. Great locally owned dealership. Mike Norris and the crew, Jordan them down there. If you're looking for a fantastic vehicle, very few places that are better. You can finance a new demo or certified pre-owned vehicle for as low as 1.49% at Canada's #1 Volvo dealership, Volvo of Edmonton.com. Steve McIntyre is going to join us momentarily. The Oilers, of course, the big news, they haven't officially unveiled it, but the logo you could see. So there's going to be official announcement soon for the Heritage Classic for those who are looking for tickets. I guess the good news is, barring a stunner, the weather should be much more enjoyable for fans. And there won't be 2 games this year, which is actually, I think, a little bit of a disappointment, if I'm being honest. I think a lot of people would have loved to have an alumni game. And yeah, even though it's a long day, you would have liked it, especially if the weather's not going to be freezing cold, right? Especially, it's not going to be freezing cold. So, there's still tickets available if you're looking. It's probably going to happen right up until the end. Now, Flames fans likely going to travel quite well for that. So be prepared. Now, we are joined, big friend of the show, Steve McIntyre joins us once again. Steve, welcome back, man. How you doing?
Gregor, how are you? I'm great.
Oh, I'm doing all right. Now, as we speak, are you wearing a pair of Wranglers and buckskin boots right now?
Oh, my God. I've got a pair of Wranglers. I'm wearing a Canadian tuxedo right now.
I love it. Don't change, buddy. That's fantastic.
I haven't changed for the last 40 years. Never will. Never. I ain't changing.
No, that's great. Now, do you wear the cowboy hat too regularly?
I wear it as much as I can.
Ooh, nice. Like a Stetson?
Yeah. No, hell no. Come on now. No. I it kind of varies. I'm kind of depends on the, there's a couple little things that I'm a little fussy about, but yeah, no, I'm not a Stetson fan.
Okay. Now, I know you're going to be part of the Hockey Heroes event coming up on September 9th. Steve, how's your playing skills right now? Do you play a lot, or are you out are you practicing the Michigan? What's going on?
You know what? I was playing senior hockey out here in Saskatchewan.
Oh, I saw that.
And yeah, it was I had a lot of fun. I played with a lot of guys I played hockey with, and coming up through the ranks, actually. So that was kind of cool. Actually, let me rephrase that. I played with 2 guys and the rest of them are retired. I was the oldest guy, obviously. And, then the old saying goes, the mind is willing and the body is weak. Sometimes I kind of came to that conclusion. So I'm kind of semi-retired. I don't, I enjoy going out and skating for causes such as this and getting out with the guys as much as I can, the alumni. And then I also play a little bit of beer league hockey here in Brock with the Bandits. It's our local adult rec team that I enjoy playing here in Brock. So, but as of late, I haven't been on the skates. I don't think since probably January maybe. So yeah, but yeah, it shoot be.
Now, are you gonna go? Are you gonna rent some ice before the 9th just to limber up a bit, or just you're going in cold, saying, "Here we go, let's see what I got"?
No, shoot. I mean, you know me. I'm gonna go in there and you know, do the best I can.
Now, when you're playing,
enjoy the.
Sorry, Steve. When you're playing beer league, are you defense or forward?
Oh, whatever they need. I skate around with a smile on my face, and I realize that, man, what a wonderful game that I got to play, you know, and then get paid to play at such a high level. You kind of really appreciate that, and at that caliber, at that stage in my life, it's like, hey, I'd play net if they needed me to. I've actually thought about playing net, and then I thought that for about a half a second, then I'm like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. But no, I play whatever they need me to play. Utility man. Jason Strudwick kind of guy.
Jason Strudwick kind of guy. Okay, so I like that. Useful guy, good team guy in the room. That's totally good. Now we had Jordan Eberle on the program yesterday. Of course, now playing with the Seattle Kraken, and he was talking about his first NHL game, which coincided with the toe drag moves. Pretty sweet goal. And then we were reliving the story because I had a conversation with him and a young Taylor Hall, because that was the Steve McIntyre Radis Evanens fight. And you got to remember, like, these guys were like, Eberle was 20 years old, Hall was 18, just young kind of guys, right, coming out of junior. And I still remember, like, a few days later for them, they were just like, oh my goodness, like they had never seen men that big and have a fight like that, Steve. And it, like, what was your, because I got their side of it. What was it for you when you saw Eberle score that goal as a rookie in that game?
Well, I mean, obviously I actually had a front row ticket. I think I was in the penalty box. I had a front row, seat to it. I was in the penalty box watching it, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, just the calmness, just the whole, how it all worked out, and it was probably one of the prettiest things I've ever seen in my entire life, as far as how effortless it was and just how smooth, like, just, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, this is like Mario Lemieux smooth. Like, this is, it was an unbelievable goal, and it was just, holy cow, I got to be a part of it. It's like, wow. It was pretty interesting. Like I said, it was exciting, and to be a part of that was pretty special.
Steve McIntyre joins us. Steve, the thing I will always remember about you when you played, like, obviously some of your tilts were memorable, but the thing that stood out to me the most still was when I saw you after your first NHL game. You're in the dressing room afterwards, and your father comes in the room. And you guys had this, like, both big men, you had this huge, massive bear hug, and both of you were crying because being in that game, like, making it finally after slugging it out in the East Coast League and the American League, and so many people saying you never do it. Looking back, because there was a lot of guys that just, they weren't willing to even show that emotion outwardly. And I remember talking to Shorin Horkoff and Ethan Morrow afterwards, and they talked about how seeing that even as players reminded them of just how lucky you are to be in the NHL. And they said, like, the one thing Big Mac always brought was kind of a reminder of, guys, I don't care how bad it is, we're still in the NHL. Like, is that one of your favorite, like, father-son moments, that hug that you had in the room that day?
Golly, you're really kind of tearing a guy up right now. But, that, probably that, and then the time where, I was in Calgary, and it was, I fought Jimmy Vandermeer, and it was my first game, in an Oiler jersey, and I'll never forget it. I put the jersey on, and I looked at Chopper, and I literally had tears in my eyes because it was like, I'm here. Like, if I played the last game, I played it as an Oiler, and then after that game, I had a fairly good game, and my dad looked at me and he said, well, I think you'll be all right. And then to kind of put the icing on the cake, the first game that you guys seen, and we hugged. And I mean, they sacrificed a lot. My brother and sisters, they sacrificed a lot for me to, just like every other family, I'm sure they sacrificed a lot for, to see me through. And I think it was a surreal moment that, like I said, that means it's probably one of the more special things about hockey, that, that moment where I got to hug my dad and say thank you.
Oh, you're getting everybody teared up, Steve. I love it, man. I'm an emotional guy here. This is fantastic. No, it's great. We need more of that, man. No, it's good to have, nostalgia. We love it. We love the emotion that sports brings out. And, sometimes we sear like that raw emotion on the ice. And, in your case, in the role you played, like, pretty ferocious at times. But then there's the human side of it. And I think that's always important to discuss. And I like it. And it's always like for you now, because, you made it to the NHL and you got to play for the Oilers. Obviously, it was one of your favorite teams, which made it even more special.
Right.
And, you scored some big goals in Edmonton as well, which is always an added bonus for things. Like when you watch now, like you look at the Oilers and you see McDavid and you see Draisaitl, like how much like more excited are you now because that's your former team and you're like you'll always be an Oiler alumni?
Well, that's the thing that I was actually talking to some people here today that I worked, actually last couple of days, telling them about this great opportunity that we get to be a part of up in Whitecourt and help out with the community. But, it's the Oilers are the only organization that I've been a part of that they've had an active alumni that they've reached out and said, hey, we could really use you today, or, the week's coming or whatever. Are you able to work it out? And it's fun giving back, but then, talking about, like I said, like experiences like you witness and kind of, the nostalgia, talking about it, it makes you appreciate, the opportunity of being an Oiler and then obviously being a part of such a great organization. And now, watching these young guys come up, hopefully I'll have the opportunity to meet these guys and be able to share a coffee with them or whatever and talk about, hockey or whatever. But that's the one thing that I love about being an Oiler is once an Oiler, always an Oiler. And people, they don't really, everybody's like, oh yeah, whatever. But it's like, it is true. It's, they always are accommodating. They're always reaching out. Hey, and I really appreciate that. Like I said, it makes you feel part of something special. And I wish them nothing but the best in the future, in the way they're going right now. So it's pretty cool.
Well, Steve, it's always great to catch up with you, man. I know people will be a jam-packed house in Whitecourt on the 9th coming up this weekend. Have a lot of fun. Soften up your hands, maybe get some ivory soap on them and dangle a few out there. So, and if Struddy's coming up there, watch out for your ankles because he loves to pass off your ankles.
Right on. I'm excited to see the guys and be a part of it. Like I said, I was up there with Trent before and we had such a fun time and to be able to give back to the community and be a part of that, some fundraising there. That's what I love about these kind of things. So I'm privileged and honored to be a part of it.
Well, Steve, hopefully we see you in Edmonton next time you're in Edmonton. You got, of course, an open invitation. Come to the Sports 1440 studios and spend a little time with us. So it's always good to chat with you, buddy.
Thanks, Gregor.
That is Big Mac, Steve McIntyre. Whew, getting a little emotion on the show. I love it. So I can tell you, man, like you could hear Steve, like just thinking about that moment. Like obviously it wasn't his first game, but it was his first home game in Edmonton. And just watching that, I just really hadn't seen it before. Right. And I have a lot of respect for people and especially men nowadays that are comfortable enough to just show their emotions and be okay with it. And you should have seen, like, obviously McIntyre's a huge man and his dad, and they're hugging and they're crying. And you could just see the reaction of their teammates. Like they understood. And it was a pretty awesome moment. We'll take a quick break and wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Jason Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca live on Sports 1440, as well as on the YouTube channel for Oilers Nation. Check it out. Subscribe.
Some things just work together.
clothes you wear, and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
She's giving me the excitations. I'm finding out good vibrations.
We return Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're having a great drive home. If you're in around Wetaskiwin, Edmonton, wherever you're at, hope you're having an awesome day. Be safe on the roads. By the way, if you're ever in a traffic snarl, let us know on the text line at 833-401-1440. We'll pass it around. Want everybody to get home with as little amount of stress as possible. It's always nice if that happens. So lots of texts coming in. 833-401-1440 in our Jiffy Lube inbox. I like these ones. Hey, guys, I became a huge fan of the Oilers because of McIntyre. Absolutely loved it. That one comes in from Dan. Hey, guys, so happy to have you guys back on the radio. My summer season involves driving from Big White to Predator Ridge, and during winter, I operate snowcats. I was stunned the morning you went off, but all is good again, and I can sound intelligent when I talk sports with my buddies. Great to have you back from Seabass. Well, Seabass, I can't guarantee that, but we will try to help you out for sure. Hey, boys, what a great interview. I found myself trying to throw in an earbud when I have to go into the store and do something to work because I don't want to miss a second of the show. I didn't realize how much I missed this. Thanks for coming back. That one comes from Nash in Whitecourt. Well, Nash, we're happy to be back, and thanks for sharing your day with us. We truly appreciate it. You know what? It's a lot of fun. You don't know what you got till it's gone. It's definitely great. Hey, Greggs, well, we made it a few days before you make everyone well up. What a great interview. Miss your heartfelt chats from IMAC. Well, thanks, IMAC. You know what? Hey, I love that sort of thing. And I think all of us, a little bit of emotion's good in sports. No question about it. And I think everybody if you're lucky enough to have a good relationship with your father or with your son, there's just something special. Obviously with your daughter too, don't get me wrong, but there's just, there's something unique and special about it. And I've talked about this before, and I'm going to keep banging the drum on it. Fathers are very important. There was a line in the book, The Boy Crisis. I mentioned, you know what, we wouldn't try to live without air, water, or mothers, but we try to live without fathers. And I think for the longest time, it's a role that has been maybe not respected enough. At times, hey, there's some men who don't take it serious enough, and that's unfortunate. But there's lots who do, and lots who want to. And you know what? We need to celebrate that more. I think it's awesome. Don't discount yourself if you're a dad, the importance you have in your son and daughter's life. It's major, major importance. So take it serious. And trust me, I know at certain times, like it's a job that you don't necessarily get instant gratification from right away. Sometimes it's a long game for that. But man, I would love to, and I'm going to try to track down Steve's dad because we heard Steve's side of it. Now imagine being the dad who, when your son comes up and as a grown man gives you that bear hug, not embarrassed in front of everybody, just to say, hey, thanks. Like you're a big reason why I'm here. Like, you kidding me? Those are the moments as a father that you would, like, that's really, at the end of the day, you want your kids to be happy. You want them to be healthy. And you want to feel like, you know what? Like, I didn't screw up that bad. Right? And, that's a moment where all the discipline and all the hard work and, all the maybe days, the teenager years, man, that one moment, because that's really what it is as a parent, I believe. It's about certain moments that really can make or break it for you, for sure. So I love it. Guys, great to hear you back on the radio, especially for my drive home. Makes the rush hour grind so much easier to take. Great interview with McIntyre. Oh, that's a good nickname, man. The old McIntyre. I love that one. Fantastic. So that one comes in from Morgan, which, hey, there you go, baby. You know what? Morgan didn't even have to put his name in the text. But you know why we know it, Cons? Because it's saved in. So anytime you text us, you put your name in it. We get it. It's a fantastic little tool. I'm absolutely loving the fact that we have this on our system. Coming up, the Jays, if you missed it, they lost earlier today. But Canada, huge win. They are on to the semifinals at the FIBA World Championships of basketball. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31 points today. Another great outing. He was excellent. Canada's good. And now I know people saw the video, Dylan Brooks. Like, I have to say, I'm a big fan of Dylan Brooks. Right? Like, I know the Canadians are very respectful, and we are. They got a reputation. Oh, you're so polite. Oh, sorry. Geez, I bumped you. Oh, sorry. Right? Like, we're probably the best at saying sorry. And, Dylan Brooks is kind of like the villain of the NBA. He gives to you-know-what. He doesn't care. And him and Jokic are going after it today. Like, oh, man. The more I watch him, the more I kind of like it. When he's on your team, it's good to have that guy. Don't you think, Cons?
Yeah, you love it. I mean, Canadians, there's that reputation, but look around the NHL. There's a lot of guys that are Canadian that we don't necessarily love when they're the opposition, but when they're on your team, of course you love them.
100%.
I mean, Brad Marchand. If you can be the Brad Marchand of the NBA, you're a contributor, you do good things, but you also get under the skin. And maybe every once in a while you get ejected. That's okay. 6 minutes left, you're up by 15. I think that's what the score was when he was out. I mean, hey, and he took Luka with him. So that's a pretty fair trade, in my opinion. You take Luke out, that's game over. So, yeah, I like it when he's on your side.
Hey, Gregor, I dearly missed you talking about sports. No one else talks about sports in the fashion you do or with your interviews. Really miss it. Really appreciate it from the Stair Farmer. Well, thanks for that, man. Appreciate that. I think interview, I've always said, interviews, people, when they say, he's not a good interview, well, 50% of the interview comes from the interviewer. So if I'm not asking good questions, well, then I don't expect good answers. So it's something I enjoy doing. I'm curious by nature, and I like it. I didn't expect to get emotional there with Stevie, but I like it. It's great. So, hey, guys, the best ever was Jake DeBrusk telling Louis he loved him on the ice after the interview during the game. That was pretty awesome. I remember talking to Lou about that one, and he said, whoa, kind of caught him right in the feels, as it should. Right? It's fantastic. And speaking of Lou, I saw the big man strolling around West Edmonton Mall yesterday, leading up to our show. His wife had him on a shopping spree. I was dying. So how'd that go, Big Lou? We might have to check in with Lou, see how it went yesterday on his shopping spree around West Edmonton Mall. So I think it's hard for the Lou Meister to find a suit jacket that fits the broad shoulders. Right? Pretty broad shoulders. He never misses a bench press day. Never misses a bench press day. I'll tell you that. Also, good news for all of you NFL fans. Tomorrow night, of course, NFL returns. And we have Detroit and Kansas City and Brandon Douglas. Every Thursday, Brandon, for the most part, he'll be at Thursdays at the Canadian Brew House. Connor is going to be Mondays at the Canadian Brew House. And tomorrow, it's Ellerslie, so get down there. How about the unreal prizes you have? You can win a trip for two to the Super Bowl, dude. This year. Like, you know how much a trip for two to the Super Bowl is worth? Like, one ticket's like 10 G's, man. So get down to the Brewhouse Ellerslie location tomorrow. Brandon Douglas will be there. Introduce yourself to him. He's getting into the hosting events, so make him feel comfortable. Chirp his team. Cons, who's Brandon's team again?
Ooh.
Is he a Bears fan?
He keeps that one tight to the chest.
Yeah, well, we have to find out. I thought, I was like, did I forget? Or
he's a Texans fan. That's why.
A Texan fan?
Yeah.
Wow.
The farm boy, the Texans.
Jeez,
I think that's the reason.
Okay.
No, I think that was the team back in the day. He used to play Madden, and it would randomly select that. So yeah, he's a Texans fan.
Okay. Jeez. Well, if there's any other Texans fans in town, you probably want to go there. Not a lot of you together.
Yeah, Norman the Combine. Maybe go reunite with another Houston fan.
Yeah, saddle up.
CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. There's some nice pieces there.
Yeah, saddle up. That'll be good. I like it. So we'll have that moving forward, which is a lot of fun. And then the Con Man is next Monday. He will be out in Lewis Estates. Oh, you're so close to home stomping grounds. Bills and Jets.
Yeah.
On a Monday. That's actually a pretty good game, man.
That's going to be great. Yeah.
You got the Bills, who everybody's expecting to be very good, and then you got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. What are we expecting out of the Jets? So that should be fun. Of course, the other NFL news, if you missed it, in our NFL report brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. The rates never change. No overtime charges. Doesn't matter. Need something fixed? Tell you Bill Legacy at legacyheating.ca. And Travis Kelce, unlikely to play tomorrow, Cons. Cooper Kupp is ruled out for sure on the weekend. So anybody in your fantasy, Connor will have all of that tomorrow. Like, tune it in tomorrow morning at 11 to 12. If you got any ideas on who to play, like who's going to get all the balls now if Kelsey's not playing for Kansas City? Like, think about it. right? That makes it rather interesting. Pacheco going to go off?
I mean, geez, Pacheco, MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They've got Kadarius Toney.
What about
Sky Moore, Justin Ross. There's options. That's the part, and we talked about it in the fantasy frenzy. Like with the Chiefs, you never really know who Patrick Mahomes is going to, find that week. He's going to find an advantage that he can take. He can, find the weak spot in the defense. But who's it going to be? Who's it going to be in the game plan that week? It's hard to say. Fantasy-wise, I don't even know. With Kelsey out, it's a risk. You could pick, let's say, Kadarius Toney. He could end up with 20 points. He could end up with 2. It's a bit of a mess there. But if you're a fan of the team, it's going to be a good product.
Hey, guys, I just got in the car to go home from work. Hearing Gregor's voice brought a big smile to my face. I missed you guys. Glad you're back on the air from Brad. Brad, we miss talking to you too, man. Trust me. This is a mutual. I think there's all a little bit of, if you're a sports fan, you're just like, oh, okay, we're back. I enjoy it. It's fun, right? Tune in tomorrow, of course. Kevin Carius, 7 o'clock. Connor Man with the Fantasy Frenzy at 11. And then Big LT will come in from noon until 1 o'clock. That wraps up a busy edition. If you missed any parts of the show, Connor's got all the podcasts up where they used to be. Wherever you get your podcasts are there. You can go to YouTube for Oilers Nation if you want to rewind the show. Any parts of it. We have the individual interviews up at jasongregor.com. So everything is there. And as always, thanks for listening to the Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca, coming to you live from the eWell studio, EWEL.ca. Have yourselves a fantastic evening. Let's get to the Con Man and a Sports Center update brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Get a Pennzoil Platinum full synthetic oil change today and receive a $20 digital gift card to over 30 merchants. Book your appointment at jiffylubeservice.ca. Good night.
It's time for a Sports 1440 top of the hour update.
The San Francisco 49ers and defensive end Nick Bosa agreeing to a 5-year, $170 million extension. That's $122.5 guaranteed. The 3-time Pro Bowler becomes the highest paid defensive player in league history. Good news for the Bengals is quarterback Joe Burrow is a full participant at practice. He'll be good to go for week 1. The Rams will be without wide receiver Cooper Kupp in week 1 when they take on the Seattle Seahawks due to a hamstring injury. Kupp missed 8 games last season with injuries. From the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs signed forward Noah Gregor to a PTO. Gregor posted 10 goals and 17 points in 57 games last season with the San Jose Sharks. Major League Baseball today, the Jays did not pick up the win against the Athletics. They lose 5-2. Elsewhere, it was the Rockies losing to the Diamondbacks 12-5. Phillies over the Padres 5-1. The Cubbies knocked off the Giants 8-2. Guardians get past the Twins 2-1, and the Brewers falling to the Pittsburgh Pirates 5-4. Still to come tonight, the Astros take on the Rangers and the Orioles in Anaheim. A couple games going on right now. The Rays have a 2-1 lead over the Red Sox. Dodgers up to the Marlins 1-0. Mariners lead the Reds 7-1. Yankees and Tigers tied at 1 apiece. And the Cards up on the Braves 4-0. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. with the Kevin Carius Show.